Hey guys. This is part 9 of What If Naruto Realized His Full Potential. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 25 read, Kusagakure, undisclosed location. Karin loathed life in Kusagakure. She hated everything about it. She hated the village and the people in it, the country surrounding it, and the tall grass and river lands throughout which shallow slivers of streams ran for miles, of which many were poisoned by kusanine to foil unsuspecting invaders, though she could never remember which were poisoned and which were not, and she hated the thick forests, and the countless of filthy swamps and disgusting insects and poisonous plants and flowers in them. She hated the weather, unbearably humid during the summer and bone-chilling cold in the winter. There was truly nothing redeemable about Kusagakure. Not a single one thing that could make her believe there was something worth cherishing in the country she had been born to. Being raised a shinobi with exceptional, or rather unique, sensory perception ability did not make her life any less troublesome. Fuck you and your expectations. All of you. She wore up a storm of curses as packed her bags. Ever since she was a little girl, her sensory aptitude and unique healing ability had ensured she was always closely watched. Few knew just how much Kusagakure relied on her ability to detect and discern chakra down to its most minute form. For the past 2 weeks, Sojan had her track a foreign chakra signature in the village belonging to an intruder. The shogun, for reasons unknown to her, was content to let roam freely. It was beyond confusing given Kusa's otherwise zero-tolerance measures against spies, but Karin knew better than to question orders. Nobody refused the shogun. Not even her rare Uzumaki heritage and unique abilities would be enough to guarantee her life. The shogun got what he wanted, always. You either obeyed or you died. It was that simple. Karin didn't mind her assignment though, strange as it were, because she quickly realized she had once sensed this particular chakra signature before a long time ago. It was during the Chunin exams when she first sensed it in the Forest of Death. It was the last time she had been allowed to leave the village. Sojan had sent her to Konoha to observe chakra signatures belonging to Konoha's new generation of future clan leaders and prominent shinobi. Amongst the shogun's more ruthless strategies, Kusa made it their business to track and observe promising young shinobi from other villages in order to nip the bud before it could bloom. Targets were observed for some time and usually dispatched when the opportunity arose, often when the target was outside of their village's wall. Naturally, these assassinations were always made to look like the actions of other parties. There had been quite a few talented young shinobi at the Chunin exams Karin had attended. It sickened her to think that most of them would have likely been disposed of by now. The invader's chakra was unlike anything she had felt before. Even from her considerable distance from the village, she could feel it, and no doubt even less skilled sensor types could too, albeit faintly. She wondered why she hadn't noticed before, during her time in Konoha, the familiar quality to the invader's chakra not unlike her own. As intriguing as it was, there was no time to ponder. Now is my chance, Karin thought as she hurriedly stuffed her duffel bag with some clothes and other essentials. I'm going to get out of here, and then. The sensor type almost swooned as her memory wandered to the day she saw him for the first time, the moment she fell in love with Uchiha Sasuke. Flashback. You guys! Damn it, where are you? Karin clutched the earth scroll in her hand in a vice grip as she trudged through the aptly named Forest of Death, as though her safety rested on her ability to keep it close. She was terrified and by her lonesome in the veritable contained battlefield of vicious wildlife, an enemy shinobi. Karin swore under breath. Her teammates were nowhere to be seen, though they had been with her mere moments ago, undoubtedly hunting down the team that attempted to ambush them, though that had failed due to her sensory perception. On her own, Karin was far too frightened to focus on anything other than her surroundings, unable to get a lock on her team's chakra signatures. They were supposed to protect her. She wasn't fit for combat. Her role as their sensor type was to detect and document chakra types. There was little she could to defend herself. Karin's luck turned for the worse yet as a giant bear came crashing through the Forest of Death, tearing down entire trees and uprooting thick brushes as it preyed up on the young kunoichi. You guys! Karin screamed helplessly, scrambling to escape as the bear charged at her. It was to no avail as she tripped and fell on her face in her hurry. The fall knocked her glasses off her face. It's over! I'm going to die, she thought, panicked. A blurry and savage death was imminent. The giant bear roared, baring its fangs as it neared. I'm going to die, she thought as her blurry vision made out a new figure. Sure, Rindan. It happened so fast that by the time Karin managed to find and put on her glasses, the bear had already been defeated, and slumped over on the ground with a minor quake. That's when she saw him. Another Earth scroll, huh? The raven-haired boy said, standing atop the defeated animal's head, a satisfied smirk on his face. See ya. Before Karin could say anything, her savior was already gone. She sat there for the longest time, her mind blank on all but his arrogant smile. Karin didn't recall how much time passed when she heard another voice. Quite something, isn't he? Karin jumped as she looked up the tree she sat under. Orochimaru slithered down and stood in front of her, smiling ominously and licking his lips with his lengthy tongue. Oh yes, quite something indeed. End flashback. Karin vividly remembered meeting Orochimaru of the Sannin that day. The infamous serpent sought her out and made her an offer worth risking the penalty of death. Uchiha Sasuke will come to me in the due time to attain power, he had told her. If you wish to be near him, little girl, I shall permit it. I may even find uses for you too. Though he didn't elaborate, Karin knew what he meant. Her Uzumaki heritage made her a very valuable asset. Think it over, Orochimaru said in his parting words. Sojan would surely make the connection if you deserted now. However, if a year or so from now you wish to leave Kusa and join me, join Sasuke and I, there will be a place for you. The rogue shinobi disappeared shortly after and left her to her thoughts. Karin had of course considered his offer countless times since. She had made her decision to go when desertion was opportune, and such an opportunity presented her tonight. Kyuzugakur, blood dripped to the floor of the cracked barrier dome as it repaired itself. Sojan frowned, though he remained calm. What fearsome power! The Kyubi truly cannot be underestimated. The shogun looked to where his left arm once was. The limb had been savagely ripped off and rendered his shoulder to a bloody stump. Naruto remained suspended in a maelstrom of crimson chakra. 2 tails of bubbling chakra flowed from his lower back. Don't push it, Baekitsun, he breathed heavily as he fought to regain his composure. The more tails of chakra he called forth, the harder it became to remain in control. The Kyubi's evil intent amplified his own emotions and clouded his judgment. It took every ounce of restraint to keep from mauling Sojan like a wild animal. His killing intent spiked and receded sporadically. The damn fox is trying to take control. He held out his hand and channeled his chakra, and golden flames covered his fingertips. You want to reinforce the seal? Yes. May I ask why, Naruto-kun? There was a pause. The fox killed my parents. I know being Jinchuriki means I can't make every decision I make about me. I have to understand what I mean to Konoha. I understand that now. So I'll be its jailer, and I'll help maintain the balance between the Great Five, but I refuse to ever rely on it again. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist. I'll be a Jinchuriki in name only. Very well. Perhaps we can reach a compromise, Naruto-kun. Naruto slammed his flame-covered hand on his stomach and turned his wrist as though twisting a key in a lock. The Kyubi's chakra quickly began to subside, sucked back into the seal on his stomach that bound the biju. Naruto continued to suspend himself using his Fuji no Hisho, his eyes turning blue though his pupils remained temporarily split. You refuse to fight with your biju's power? Sojan sounded quizzical, seemingly maintaining his composure despite the fact he was now 1 arm short. The shock faded and pain coursed through his body, and yet the shogun projected the perfect image of calm. Naruto spat a mouthful of blood as the wounds came to a close and healed at a rapid pace. Where is Jiraiya? You seriously expect me to tell you? The shogun laughed derisively at the mere thought of it. Why would I even considering entertaining such a foolish notion? To save your own life, Naruto narrowed his eyes at him. And the people down there, he added, pointing to the village. You're their leader, aren't you? Your actions are going to lead to another war that is going to take more lives than either of us are prepared to lose. You dare lecture me on what it means to be a leader? Sojan said in hollow voice so quiet and cold it only hinted at his ire. The mask of calm cracked. You attack my village, kill my men and lay siege to my buildings, and you dare lecture me, boy? I, who have saved this country? I, who have fought in more battles than you have lived days? I, who have stained my hands with the blood of countless for the sake of this country? You know nothing, boy. You dash. You can't win. Naruto cut him off resoundingly. I'm not so fresh myself, but we both know I can kill you right here and now, and your precious country will be left to face a war it can't win. And even if you did somehow kill me, it won't be enough. You're outnumbered and outmatched against Konoha and its allies. Sojan grit his teeth and ignored the searing pain in his stump. My allies would beg to differ. You won't have many allies left after this. There was undeniable merit to the statement. After all, who would stand with the village that was assaulted by a single shinobi? The fact that Kusa hadn't fought a battle so close to home, at home, in decades simply made things worse. You know that as well as I do. We shall see about that, Sojan glowered. Naruto's chakra spiked as he took a fighting stance. I did warn you, old man, he said coldly. As a rule, he refused to actively rely on the Kyuubi's chakra, but whilst it was still mingled with his own, he figured he might as well put it to good use, aiming with his left palm as he pulled his right fist back. Macaws, evil wind? It was fortunate for the hidden grass leader his dominant limb remained as he quickly reinforced his barrier under the threat of imminent attack. Naruto channeled the remainder of the Kyuubi's chakra into his fist as though he were to perform another whirlwind fist. The principles were similar, but the results were worlds apart. Anakin, the shogun braced himself as he punched the air, firing off the last of the Kyuubi's chakra in single, compacted projectile of Biju chakra. The demon fist rippled through the air like an artillery cannon, crashing into the spherical barrier with such force Sojan was forced to reconstruct it as fast it was being destroyed. Naruto did not relent there, however, and followed up with a slamming an unusually large Rasengan against the projectile and drove it even further in the crack forming on the surface. Otama Rasengan. Sojan buckled under the sheer pressure of the sizable spiraling sphere of chakra slamming into his fragmented barrier, as it blasted him to the ground below with such velocity his descent was abrupt and brutal. The result was a resounding crash and vision-obscuring cloud of dust. The impact alone would have killed the hidden grass leader if not for the pitiful remains of his barrier that shattered upon impact. Though it kept him alive, it did not spare him the pain of a broken back and many bone fractures. Still in the air, Naruto then turned to the grass dragon as its reconstruction neared completion, knowing that it would have to be dealt with once and for all before he could come within reach of the village leader. He drew a deep breath and hunched over, arching his arms over his back. Konoha, yes. Tsunade made no attempt to hide her approval as they observed the blonde sending Sojan crashing to the ground below. She felt an enormous weight fall off her shoulders and released a sigh of relief. Damn kid. Koharu and Hamura wore matching expression of reserved apprehension. The battle is not over, the latter said, though he sounded vaguely impressed. Hokage-sama. Tsunade looked to Rooster. The ANBU captain had been quiet throughout the battle thus far. What is it? I request leave to depart and retrieve Uzumaki, the ANBU captain said. The Godame nodded. How long will it take you to get to Kusa no Kuni and back? If I leave now, I can be there within the day assuming he takes the shortest route back to our borders. Bring him back in bindings, Danzo spoke up announcing his presence in the room. The root leader had been awfully silent up until then, though for different reasons than most. Rooster glanced at the man known as some as the darkness of shinobi and then to Tsunade for confirmation. Hokage-sama? Disregard that old man's ramblings, Tsunade instructed with a sideway glare. Bring Naruto back unharmed. Don't take no for an answer if he refuses, but try not to hurt him. Understood. Rooster nodded his understanding and vanished from sight by means of a body flicker. Tsunade-sama. Sakura tried to keep her voice down as she called for her master's attention. She was the only Chunin in the room full of Konoha's brass. Her presence was anything but appropriate. Look, perhaps this is it, Fukasaku mused aloud. That terrible jutsu. Tsunade raised an eyebrow as the entire room's attention shifted to the old toad. What jutsu? I have yet to see it myself and have only heard of it, Fukasaku said with uncertainty. About 5 months after Naruto-kun began his training, I heard of an incident amongst the inhabitants of Mount Kanguren. The scorpion horde took offense to the slayings of their kin at the hand of Naruto-kun. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose. Don't tell me he picked a fight with them. Quite the contrary, Fukasaku assuaged her concerns. The story goes that they attacked him early in his training and Naruto-kun defended himself. Still, the scorpion horde demanded redress. If not Naruto-kun's life, they demanded territory. Territory that they had no reasonable claim to and was not Enma-sama's to give without abusing his position as one of the 12 Deva. Personally, I believe the Scorpions were simply exploiting Enma-sama's strong desire to maintain peace. So what happened? Sakura asked despite herself, waiting intently when the old toad to another pause. Fukasaku croaked with laughter. Enma-sama decided Naruto-kun was to take responsibility for his actions, and that the scorpion horde would have their pound of flesh. How is that fair or just? Naruto didn't go looking for a fight, Sakura said indignantly. Tsunade placed a hand on her student's head. Quiet, Sakura. The rosette shrunk embarrassed. I wasn't finished, young lady, Fukasaku said, albeit with an amused smile. The scorpion horde would have their pound of flesh, but only if they could take it. Enma-sama delivered Naruto at the foot of Mount Kanguren and promised the scorpions none would interfere. Vengeance was theirs if they could take it, and sure enough the scorpions attacked. Naruto took them all on by himself? Tsunade asked. Fukasaku paused again, slightly agitated. That's right, Tsunade-chan, the old toad confirmed. However, Naruto had come prepared with a new jutsu. Now, I do not know the exact details for this part of the story, and it changes every time I hear it, though the story always ends the same way. Naruto defeated the entire scorpion horde with a single devastating jutsu so powerful that not even he could avoid its devastation, and ended up bedridden for an entire month. Mount Konguren, Hiruzen and Enma sat cross-legged in front of the giant crystal ball. The majority of the Sarutobi clan, apes and humans alike, joined them as they watched the battle and Kusa unfold, huddled around crystal ball as though it were a family picnic. None were too reserved in their support for Naruto. To them he was as much part of the Sarutobi clan as any one of them, and the Sarutobi looked after their own. Kick his ass, Naruto! Yankazara shouted with his friends, quite literally jumping up and down with zeal. The children were promptly shushed by their elders and chided for their colorful language. Sarutobi Kajiro crossed his arms over his broad chest, standing next to his familiar. Things are heating up, uncle. He finally stopped playing around. Naruto was never playing around. Enma disagreed with the young Sarutobi. Though he is slow on the take, the longer he fights, the better he becomes. It's a double-edged sword, true, but it has yet to fail him. Hiruzen wordlessly agreed with the Monkey King, eyes stuck on the crystal ball as Sarutobi children quite literally crawled over him. A part of Hiruzen was overtaken with apprehension. He was afraid for Naruto, afraid that he might have made the wrong decision in stepping aside and letting him go to Kusa, terrified that it would be one of many mistakes that would haunt until his dying breath. Children, get off Hiruzen-sama. The other part of him was filled with pride as he watched Naruto fight. It was such a change from the infant child he once held in his arms and looked over, and to see him hold his own in battle, to see the fruits of his training made him realize the boy that once idolized him as his doting grandfather had become a man. He had become a man fit to protect his legacy, to carry on the will of fire. He had grown up and become fit to one day lead. The realization was Hiruzen's proudest moment. And yet, why did it make him feel like weeping? He's going to be fine, Hiruzen, Enma said, picking up on his counterpart's feelings. He's come a long way. Hiruzen smiled, proud and saddened at the same. That he has, Enma. He picked up one of the children and set the unruly child in his lap. Watch closely, everyone. It's that jutsu, isn't it? Kajiro furrowed his brows with concern. Is it complete? That remains to be seen, Hiruzen said as he bounced the child in his lap. Though I can say for certain that it is by far the most dangerous futon jutsu I have ever witnessed. Kyuzugakure, Naruto settled in his hunched stance as his chakra spiked. It had been half a year since he injured himself using this particular jutsu. He had been so close to death then. He had never seen Hiruzen so worried and relieved when he came to. It was an excruciatingly painful and humiliating time in his life that had cost him dearly. The incident had put him out of commission for a full month, bedridden and ashamed, and terrified of his own jutsu, but he had learned from his mistakes, and had grown because of it. This was his greatest achievement. An S-ranked futon kinjutsu determined and classified as such by the god of shinobi himself. White and green chakra took the shape of an ethereal giant, the upper body of a menacing, ogre-like figure with malevolent grin carrying a bag of air raised at this back. A projection of the god of wind himself, the Fujin. 1. Naruto locked on the Kamasori Kasaryu as it roared and coiled its lengthy body with fury and anticipation. Kusa's ultimate kinjutsu, huh? Well, let's see whose jutsu stacks up better, Sojan. The Fujin matched his exact movement, heaving the bag of wind as he raised his arms, and threw his hands in front of him. Futon, Fuji no Itazura Fukuro, the wind picked up. As the Fujin emptied its bag of wind, the entire sky above Kusa turned a shimmering hue of white and green as millions of chakra needles of chakra concealed in a blast of wind rained upon the Kamasori Kasaryu like a calamity spawned by a vengeful god. The beast screeched and trashed as it was taken apart, disintegrated as each needle inflicted damage on a cellular level, quite literally killing it as it tore each and every blade of grass asunder until what remained was a lifeless husk of dead grass that fell apart and scattered in the air. It was pure and utter devastation. Konoha. The room was quiet. The village leaders were simply stunned into silence as they watched the destruction unfold. They had all heard the stories of Kusa's strongest jutsu in their time, of the mighty dragon of grass that had defended Kyuzugakure for as long as it existed, an invincible and undefeatable jutsu that, at its height, made even the Shodai wary. Until that very moment the stories had been true as far as anyone knew. It was true that the Kamasori Kasaryu was amongst the greatest jutsu ever created. It was no longer true that it was invincible or undefeatable. Tsunade broke into a satisfied smirk. I can only imagine how inadequate you feel right now, Danzo. As one of the few in Konoha to hold an affinity for wind, the warmonger barely hid his sneer. This is a victory for Konoha. I have no inclination to see it as anything else. It is certainly an impressive jutsu, Yuzuki Yugao commented from behind her mask. I have never seen anything like it. Tsunade continued to beam inwardly, fighting to refrain from openly celebrating the victory. While it was true any victory Naruto claimed today would be a victory for Konoha, that did not change the fact that Naruto had overstepped, and as Hokage, she couldn't appear to be condoning that fact, as much as the results pleased her. I haven't seen a jutsu like that since Hiruzen, Hamura commented, seemingly greatly impressed. Kohara gave him a dirty look for the same reason Tsunade refrained from celebrating, but agreed nonetheless. That dream of his no longer seems so foolish. It's an impressive jutsu, but he still has ways to go, Hayashi said, nodding towards the crystal ball. Look at him. The jutsu was undoubtedly taxing on his already dwindling reserves. Kyuzugakure. Naruto began to descend as his Fuji no Hisho became harder to maintain. He felt, truth be told, exhausted didn't quite cover it. Despite coating his arms in chakra, he could feel them going numb, a side effect from his own jutsu. Not even he could escape its harm, not completely, not yet. It was time to go home. He looked to where Sojan had landed. The hidden grass leader lay on his back in a shallow pool of his own blood, his robes shredded and his gray hair strewn over his face. It seemed his barrier dome had been just enough to survive the impact, but he was incredibly low on chakra, and from the looks of it, unable to carry on fighting. There was one last thing he had to do. The fading Fujin matched his movements one last time as he arched his arms and hunched. His enemy was defenseless. If killing you prevents a war, then I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight, you old fool. He didn't have the chakra to pull off another barrage like the first. It would either kill him, or weaken him to the point that Kyuubi would take over, and he didn't know which was worse in his current situation, but his second offering would more than suffice to extinguish Sojan's flickering flame. Futon, he completed his stance. The ethereal guardian had shrunk several sizes by now, but it would be enough. Fujin no Itazura Fukiro. Fujin and Jinchuriki moved in perfect synchronization. The bag of air opened and rained a smaller, though no less lethal, barrage of hundreds of thousands needless. Sojan found inner peace as the onslaught came his way. Though his dull eye was filled with white and green, his mind was elsewhere, in a different time, a different place, with someone else. He could see her now as he stood on death's door. A woman with bright red hair and beautiful cream skin, a beautiful smile, and eyes filled with so much joy and life and hope. Don't frown so much, Sojan. You'll get wrinkles. Even on the verge of death, Sojan found reason to rejoice, and so he found it in him to smile. His life had been dedicated to protecting the country she loved. Everything he had done since her passing had been for her, to honor her, to cherish all that she had cherished. All his actions, all his victories and his accomplishments, they were all dedicated to her memory, to her life and legacy. And though he had lived longer than he had any right to, longer than he would have liked, now it was time for him to rest and be with her again, and so Sojan closed his remaining eye. I'll be there soon, Kimiko. As certain death came within range, the air rippled and a darkness appeared seemingly from thin air. A spiraling black hole of nothingness spanning the size of an entire building intercepted the onslaught. Mugen Tsukumiguchi. Sojan opened his eye and found a figure standing next to him. The figure, a man judging by sound and posture, carried an intricately designed staff with many tassels and wore a red coat, cloak, and straw hat. He was of average height and slim built, with long red hair tied in several ribbons. Everything else was covered in white bandages, even his face, except for his violet eyes. A spiral symbol was emblazoned on the figure's back. You! The staff-wielding figure looked to Sojan as though disgusted by the mere sight of him in his pitiful state. TSK, TSK, TSK. Don't tell me you let a mongrel like him do this to you, Sojan. Konoha. The sphere went blank. What just happened? Tsunade exclaimed, looking to Fukasaku. What the hell was that thing? I don't know. Fukasaku banged his staff on the sphere several times. Something is blocking Agama-sama's powers, a powerful barrier it would seem. I'll tell you what happened. The boy just brought an entire village to its knees. Hamura outraged and panicked into assuming the worst. War is inevitable now. War was inevitable before this occurred, Hamura-san, Shikaku interjected with his usual composure. Sojan would have eventually found his impetus, and now Naruto has served it to him. This works to our advantage, which I believe is why you wrote those letters, Hokage-sama. It is, the Godame nodded, grateful as ever for the Nara clan head. It wasn't planned, but Naruto went for the heart of this foolish alliance. We shall see if the other villages still possess the courage and foolishness to stand by Sojan now he has been humbled. If anything, war may yet be avoided now. At the very least, this buys us some time to evaluate our options while Kusa and its allies do the same. Shikaku rubbed his scarred chin in thought. No matter what, we must stand behind Naruto's actions. Even if sanctioning this attack after the fact is nothing more than a lie, it is a lie we must fight on if or when the time comes. I agree with Naradano, Hayashi concurred, nodding. We must also make it a priority to investigate the shogun's ties to the Uzumaki clan immediately. Agreed, Tsunade said resolutely. Anything? She asked as the old toad continued to tinker with the crystal sphere. We need to confirm Naruto made it out as soon as possible before we do anything else. Kyuzugakur. Naruto had a hard time wrapping his head around what just happened as he tried to catch his breath. Just a moment ago he was entirely certain victory was his. Sojan was on his back, defeated and at his mercy, and all he had to do was deliver the coup de grace to end it. He was certain the second onslaught would have done the job if not for the mysterious black hole that appeared out of nowhere and absorbed the entirety of his barrage. The Fujin disappeared. Its presence was no longer sustainable, let alone a third salvo, and certainly not while he had to sustain the presence of 13 summons that continued to wreak havoc in the burning military district of Kyuzugakur. Even something as trivial in comparison as his Fujin no Hisho started to become a noticeable drain. Now his vast reserves were nearly empty, so he made his way down to investigate and conserve his chakra. His descent would not be so gentle, however, as the next thing he knew chains wrapped around him and pulled him from the sky, slamming him into the ground face first. It was fortunate he had toughed up quite a bit over the past year because it hurt like hell and he managed to regain his bearings almost as quickly as he had lost them. Naruto scrambled to his feet and tensed in an attempt to free himself. Immediately he noticed something was off. The chains were not made of normal metal. They weren't made of any kind of metal. They were made up entirely out of chakra. Tell me, a new voice spoke. Did you really expect it to be that easy? Naruto turned to the source, narrowing his eyes as the cloaked figure to whom the chains were connected approached. Something told him he wasn't dealing with a Kusanin. In fact, something told him he wasn't dealing with a regular shinobi at all. Who the fuck are you? What a mouth on you, mutt! The chains wrapped around him tighter, squeezing Naruto's arms against his ribs hard enough to make him wince. You should know your place. Naruto narrowed his eyes as his mind finally caught up with him and connected the dots. Do I have any relatives left? Do I have anyone out there I can actually call family? 2. I am certain there are other Uzumaki out there still, though the odds they go by that name are slim. He had read about the Uzumaki in the few tomes Hiruzen had provided him with, and though he hadn't learned as much as he would have liked, he learned enough to realize that the red hair and chakra chains were dead giveaways. You're like me, aren't you? You're an Uzumaki. Naruto winced as the chains tightened even more. No, not like you, the cloaked figure said icily. Look at you with that disgusting blonde hair. And you dare call yourself an Uzumaki. Do you have a name, asshole? He fished for information as he tried to figure out a way to undo his bindings. He gasped and doubled over as tiny blades protruded from the chain links and broke skin. I am the 46th clan leader of the Uzumaki clan, Uzumaki Atsushi. The bandages covering his face fell to the ground. Atsushi appeared to be only a few years older than the Jinchuriki, 19 at the most. He was tall and with tan skin and piercing violet eyes. He was hideously scarred on his right cheek where a hollow gap showed his teeth. And you will know your place. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He was at a severe disadvantage and needed to buy some time, so he said, Some clan leader you are, dickhead. The Uzumaki clan was destroyed a long time ago. Oh, I'm sure that's what the fools in Konoha told you, Atsushi sneered, regarding him with a scowl of disgust as the chains tightened. Though I cannot blame them. The Uzumaki of old, though brilliant, were a people of secrecy and deceit, recluses so absorbed in foolishly chasing abstract notions of truth that they failed to anticipate their own downfall when the consequences of their actions caught up to them. And I'm sure what you're doing isn't any different. There was something incredibly agitating about Atsushi's voice and presence. The chains tightened even more. I am not like my ancestors, Atsushi sneered through his hideous scowl. The Uzumaki of new do not hide like vermin. Today seems as good as any to make our presence known. Killing Konoha's Jinchuriki and reclaiming the beast that dwells inside you will send a loud and clear message. As though on command, 4 figures appeared. 2 knelt at either side of the Atsushi. They wore matching red cloaks and straw hats. There were 2 women on Atsushi's right side, one matching Naruto's height with a slender frame, and a petite girl, easily the shortest of them all and the only one not to carry a staff. On his right 2 men bent their knees, a mountain of a man with a cloth from under his eyes that hid most of his face, and a tall, lanky figure. Anoka, Hataru, Nobuo, Saburo. Atsushi spoke their names and came to pause. "Where is Karin?" "Atsushi Naisama," said the woman closest to the Uzumaki. She had dark eyes and wore a purple, sleeveless kimono blouse and obi and a short white skirt. 3. Her name was Anoka. "Karin, she left the compound some time ago," Saburo stated as they rose to their feet, a grin on his face. "I saw her sneak out in a hurry." Atsushi glowered at the lanky Saburo. "And you didn't think to stop her?" Sojan's assistant, Natsuki-san, insisted that we left immediately, Saburo replied, smirking, still as amused by his clan leader's ire. "Karin has always been slow. She won't get far." Atsushi looked to the shortest Uzumaki. "Hataru, my love, make sure you track her down when we're done with this filth." Naruto had yet to wrap his head around the fact that not only were his new opponents Uzumaki, from the way Atsushi was talking, there was entire clan out there. "How many Uzumaki are out there?" "This one has chakra similar to ours," Saburo remarked with a questioning glance as though he was not even there. "You sure you want to kill him?" "My mother was an Uzumaki." Naruto saw no harm in sharing as much. He was eager to find out more about them as he could. "She was a refugee from Yuzuno-kuni. I was told there weren't many Uzumaki left." Anoka looked to Atsushi alarmed. "Atsushi Naisama, you promised you would never kill another Uzumaki." "I remember my promise, dear sister." Atsushi regarded Anoka with irritated look. "This one, however, is not one of us," he admitted as much himself. "No, this one is merely the half-breed spawn of an outsider and a whore." There were very few things that set Naruto off the way that did. Whatever people did or said to him, he usually could get over it. He could take the insults and the looks. Hell, he could even take people attacking him outright because he dealt with it like a man. Family and friends, however, was another story. That lit a fire in him that wouldn't be extinguished until he felt justice was served. No one insulted the woman that sacrificed so much for him. There's so much more I want to say, to teach you. I want to stay with you. You really shouldn't have said." His was ominously quiet like the calm before the storm. Needing what little chakra he had left in his stomach, his chest swelled as he spewed a high-pressure stream of water. "Suetun, Suedanya!" The mountainous Uzumaki called Nobuo stepped in front of Atsushi and erected a barrier dome much like that of Sojan, though considerably more robust. The wave-severing wave, a jutsu devised by Senju Tobarama and taught to him by the Sandaime, was capable of easily slicing through solid rock, yet it didn't so much as put a scratch on the barrier, though it was enough to elicit an immediate reaction. The chains loosened for just a second, but it was enough for him to press his hands together to form his unconventional hand seal and take another page out of the Nidaime's book. Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu. A riot of clones burst into existence, and temporarily loosened the chains long enough for him to escape his bindings. The petite Hataru surged his way with unveiled killing intent, and jumped high as she aimed for him. He took off immediately, using his wind god's flight to get out range, and just in time as, to his utter shock, the Uzumaki girl punched a sizable crater in the ground he had just stood on. "She's no Tsunade, but I'd go to be careful." Saburo and Nobuo combined their own chains to dispatch his remaining clones whilst Atsushi wrapped his own chains around Hataru's waist and launched her in the sky like a catapult. It was an unusual move, but it would take a hell of a lot more to surprise him. Naruto was ready for the girl and ruthlessly picked her back the ground, further deepening the crater she had created. The Uzumaki girl proved to be as durable as she was powerful and got up almost immediately, merely shaking her head to regain her bearings. He remained hovering in the sky, a dark look in his eyes. He was angry. No, he was furious with Atsushi's remarks, and every fiber in his being wished to make him pay, but he knew they had him at a severe disadvantage. They were fresh, whereas he had expended most of his chakra waging a one-man war against an entire shinobi village. His eyes wandered to where Sojan lied on his back still. The shogun wasn't as vulnerable of a target as he looked, however, for the Uzumaki would surely be upon him if he attacked. "It's still worth a shot," he decided as he formed the Kage Bunshin seal again and created 10 clones, each hovering in front of him with dual whirlwind lances. It was a far cry from his usual numbers, but it had to be done. "I'll distract them while you take out Sojan," he conveyed mentally as he channeled a significant remainder of his chakra to his fists and began to punch the air as though performing another whirlwind fist. Futon Yagura. In a way, he was. The principles of his Senpuken, like with his Anakin, made up the foundation for his turret. With every punch he hurled a blast of compacted air at his opponents. The Uzumaki guards scattered to evade. Atsushi didn't so much as move an inch, supremely confident as the ground around him exploded in small chunks of debris and dust. The bulky Uzumaki, Nobuo, wrapped his chains around Hataru and hurled her into the sky for a second time, although this time making good use of his brute as she came flying with considerably greater speed. Again? Well, come and get it, bitch. Naruto aimed another kick for Hataru as he relented his bombardment. She reacted quicker this time, and pushed off his shin like a springboard as she scaled over him and restrained him with her own chakra chains, using them to bind his arms behind his back and wound his legs together. He knew his situation was dire, that he had been careless, but she wasn't done yet, and began pulling him down with her with deceptive strength that continued to shock as they plummeted. Naruto crashed to the ground on his back with great force. He spat a mouthful of blood as he felt his back break on impact. Despite the agonizing pain, he was still aware of his clones falling at the hands of Atsushi's giant chains swirling in a protective manner over Sojan. Had it been worth it to try and take out the leader of Kusa? He didn't feel like answering that question, though he knew the answer. Hataru drove a knee in his gut as she landed on top of him, forcing out another mouthful of blood as she increased efforts to restrain him with her chains. The other Uzumaki guards joined their chains with hers and suspended him several feet above ground, forming a 4-point perimeter. Atsushi sneered at the display. Well, isn't this a pitiful sight for Konoha's Jinchuriki? Naruto struggled to breathe, much less speak. Judging from feeling alone, he could add internal bleeding to his growing list of injuries. He would have swallowed his pride and called forth the Kyuubi's chakra if he could, but found that to be impossible. It was as though the Uzumaki chains were restraining the Biju's chakra. They were so dense and heavy. He felt 4 different chakra signatures smother his own as they restrained him. Unpleasant didn't even begin to describe it. What do we do with him? Saburo asked from his corner, idly sitting on a large chunk of debris once part of a concrete building. If we extract the Biju now, it'll accelerate our plans quite a bit, but what do we do with him after it is done? Sojan never planned on handing the Biju over to Akatsuki. Naisama, Anoka looked to her brother pleadingly. Remember your promise. Don't worry, dear sister. I remember. Atsushi scowled at her, and then sighed regarding Saburo. He's a mutt, but he still has Uzumaki blood flowing in his veins. Atsushi molded chakra in his hands, and fiery skull-shaped apparitions appeared on his fingertips as he approached the Jinchuriki. If he survives extraction, he may be useful as a slave. You want to do it here and now? Saburo laughed in obnoxious fashion like a hyena. If we were ever going to renege on our agreement with the old shogun, now would be a good time. Atsushi allowed a small patronizing smile. Don't move, it'll only hurt more that way. The fiery apparitions on the self-proclaimed Uzumaki clan leader grew more prominent and ominous with every step. Well, fuck that. What little resistance Naruto could muster, futile as it was, stirred something inside of him. An invigorating power, foreign and unidentifiable, yet somehow intimately familiar, rushed through his entire body and exploded outwards in a storm of sizable chakra chains that dwarfed those of his captors, casting off their chains with a wave of power as immense as it was brief. It was all he needed. Impossible! Atsushi exclaimed in shock from a safe distance, an angry and confused snarl on his face. You're a half-blood. Naruto didn't hear him. He didn't hear a sound except for one, an echo, a voice and warmth so comforting and accepting he didn't want it to ever leave him. Go! The foreign chains coiled around him as they faded. He felt a yanking sensation in his seal, and shortly after, the familiar sensation of the Kyuubi's chakra flowing through his body and mending his broken bones and healing his wounds. It was as though the mysterious power dwelling inside him had forcibly commandeered the Biju's power against its will. Go now. Naruto wasn't about to question who or what just saved his hide. His first instinct was to call Senzaru. Instead, Gamahiro came crashing down from the heavens, sporting a handful of injuries of his own, and flattening the ground beneath his weight into a sizable crater as he swung his dual swords, catching the Uzumaki off guard and forcing them to retreat to a safe distance. Let's go! The warrior toad boomed, leveling the flat side of his sword. Naruto didn't need to be told twice and jumped on the flat side of the extended blade as Gamahiro launched him high into the sky, where Senzaru intercepted his descent, dipping under him with spread wings. He had never been as glad to see either of them as he was in that moment. The Falcon could sense his sentiments. You looked like you needed saving, Naruto-sama. You have no idea, Naruto replied as he looked back. Gamahiro made himself scarce with another giant leap, successfully undoing the chains that had begun to restrain him. One of the Falcon Lord's honor guards swept down to retrieve the toad. Naruto released a relieved sigh and lay down on the falcon's back. "Get us out of here, Senzaru. We anticipated you would say this, Naruto-sama," the young falcon said. "Look ahead." In the distance, the warrior falcons were painstakingly carrying the warrior toads out of the village, albeit at a much slower pace. They even took care to recover their fallen brother. Hayatsum carried Gamabunta and another warrior toad by himself and lead the cast with a significant lead still. The Falcon Lord and Toad Chieftain were discussing something, but he couldn't hear. "As soon as we are able, Gamabunta-sama and father will disperse with their guards. I will personally see to your return to Konoha," Senzaru informed. Naruto could only nod as he lied on his back, his mind still reeling with revelations. Sojan still drew breath, and would likely be on the move as soon as he was able. War was inevitable now. As much as he wanted to turn back and finish the man off, he knew that to be impossible. He had reached his limit, and pushing any further now would be foolish and ill-considered. Sojan would have to die another time, and likely on the battlefield. "I failed to stop the war before it even began," Naruto thought somberly. "But I did my best," he acknowledged. "Now I'll have to try and prevent as much bloodshed as I can." It was a crystallizing moment for him. It was true he had failed to meet his objective, and it was true that war would undoubtedly come now, and yet it was also true that it had not been for a lack of effort. He had done what he could with the variables of the situation given to him. In the past he would have likely beaten himself up over it for weeks on end, months even. However, now he realized he did not have that luxury. He did not have the luxury of time for berating himself or regrets. He had to look forward and make the best of his situation. "Naruto-sama, I sense a chakra signature in the forest below. It is distinctly similar to your own." "Oh fuck." Naruto sat up and looked down. They were too high and the forest was too thick to see through, but if one of the Uzumaki had closed in on them, they would have to be dealt with quickly. "Tell the others to go ahead. I'll deal with this one alone." Senzaru nodded and squawked to the distance to the other falcons. Naruto didn't wait for a response, and jumped off the falcon's back. He made his descent with carefully measured airstreams, aiming for the red-haired individual in his sights, softening his landing only somewhat as he caught his victim by surprise. "Alf!" Naruto restrained the red-haired girl with frightening ease, pinning her arms behind her back despite her futile resistance. It was almost too easy. "Don't fucking move! Get off me!" The girl screamed at the top of her lungs. "I'm not interested in you. I'm hightailing it out of here while I can." "What?" Naruto raised an eyebrow as he bound Karin with ninja wire. It was only then that he realized she was different from the Uzumaki he had encountered in Kusugakure. "You're deserting Kusugakure. Who are you?" "I'm not a part of Kusugakure. I'm a part of the Uzumaki clan." The bespectacled girl trashed pointlessly. "Now get off me!" Intrigued to say the least, Naruto whistled and called his falcon familiar. "What's your name?" "None of your fucking business. You can either tell me and get a ride out of here or be left behind tied up and at the mercy of whoever finds you," Naruto threatened bluntly. "I imagine your asshole clan leader won't be pleased with you." The Uzumaki girl grudgingly grunted her name. Karin. Naruto recognized the name as he lifted her off the ground just as Senzaru touched down. "I've got some questions I'd like you to answer. You take me with you to Konoha and I'll tell you whatever you want to know," Karin said. Naruto furrowed his brows with suspicion, curious over her lack of resistance. "You want to come with me to Konoha? That's what I said, didn't I?" Karin replied testily. "We better get going then, cousin." "Cousin?" Naruto furrowed his brows at her. "Did she just identify my chakra?" "Oh, please. Your chakra is undeniably similar to my own. Only an Uzumaki has that strong chakra," the irate girl elaborated before he could voice his surprise. "Atsushi is closing in on us. He'll be here in moments." Naruto was genuinely impressed. "You can sense him all the way from here?" "Yes, now let's go before he gets here." "Well, okay then. Let's get going, cousin." Konoha. Fukasaku continued to bang away on the crystal ball with annoyance, a bulging vein on his head. "Work, damn you!" The toad stopped to catch his breath, and then raised his web appendage once more just as the crystal began to flicker. "Fukasaku, what are you doing to my crystal that I loaned you?" the great toad sage said, slightly amused. "Agama-sama!" Fukasaku exclaimed, relieved. "What happened?" Tsunade approached the sphere and dipped her head respectfully in acknowledgement of the ancient toad. "Agama-sama, is Naruto okay?" "The boy is fine," the great toad sage croaked with a mystifying smile on his toothless visage. "He doesn't seem to play nice with his own kin, however." "His kin?" Tsunade's confusion lasted only for a second. "I see." This complicates things. Fukasaku, you must return, the ancient toad croaked. A summit has been called. Fukasaku nodded gravely. I see. I will return shortly, Agama-sama. The senile being nodded his large head and then turning to address Tsunade, said, Young lady, there was a brief window during which I could see Jiraiya-chan. How is he? Tsunade said quickly and with overt concern, though she cared little for appearances at that moment. Is he okay? It was only for a brief moment, and he seemed to be in good spirits. His presence is obscured by the same powers that obscured them moments ago. Powerful Fuinjutsu, the kind of which that has not been seen or spoken of openly for quite some time by human standards. Then it's true, Koharu spoke up, her frowning race scrunched with wrinkles. Sojan has allied himself with the Uzumaki. I thought the Uzumaki were dead, Yuzuki Yugao said from behind her mask. Hokage-sama? That is a conversation for another time, Tsunade decided with a mindful look to her apprentice. Sakura, you're free to go. If you see Kakashi, tell him to report to me immediately. She has heard too much, Tsunade, Koharu protested. Surely you don't mean to let her go now without swearing her to secrecy. Koharu is right, Danzo agreed, sneering at the rosette. Sakura visibly flinched under his one-eyed glare. But you have no intention of swearing her to secrecy, do you? It would hardly do to keep this victory from our people, Tsunade said, smirking with a glance to Shikaku. This is a good thing for all of us, Danzo, you should be pleased. I'm ecstatic, Danzo drawled sarcastically. Shikaku looked to his fellow department heads. It goes without saying nothing regarding the Uzumaki clan's involvement leaves this room. We need to carefully evaluate our next steps. Then I will leave you to it, and return to Mount Maiboku now, Fukasaku said, picking up the crystal ball. I will make sure Agama-sama gives Katsuya-sama your love. Please do, Tsunade said as the toad disappeared with a puff of smoke. Run along now, Sakura. And remember, not a word about the Uzumaki clan. Sakura nodded her understanding. I'll be on my way then, Tsunade-sama. The rosette bowed out of the room, excruciatingly aware of the eyes following her. Tsunade watched the door close and cleared her throat as she addressed her top shinobi. This is a crucial time. I am well aware you all have questions you want answers to, but we have a lot of work to do and little time to spare, so I suggest we get to it and reconvene in a few hours. Hayashidano, I'm counting on the military police to increase their vigilance. Our first order of business will be to close the village gates, the Hyuga clan leader said. The Hyuga clan's best will be closely rotating shifts from the time being. Very well, Tsunade turned to the Nara clan head. We will need to recall our shinobi currently on missions for the time being. Shikaku nodded once. Understood. Wartime measures and protocols will roll out in due time. Chapter 26, Changing Gears. 1 year ago, Jiraiya awoke on a soft surface in a bright, spacious room. He lay on a comfortable, swan feather bed atop linen sheets. He was shirtless. Fresh scars tracked over his skin, thick and prickly, and his ribs were covered in bandages, thus explaining the sharp pains he felt as he sat up. The bright light forced his eyes shut. Careful, a smooth, unfamiliar voice spoke. We wouldn't want your wounds to reopen. Who's there? Jiraiya hid his discomfort with not having sensed the other presence in the room before. Where am I? He raised a hand before the blinding light and squinted his eyes. His entire body felt heavy and ached with pain from countless cuts and bruises and even a few torn muscles. A man stepped into view. He was tall and elegant, with sleek, long black hair that reached his midriff, dark green eyes and black, loose-fitting robes over a military-esque suit and white-gloved hands neatly folded behind his back. My name is Mui. I have the honor of being your host. 1. Mui. The name was undoubtedly familiar. Jiraiya had heard few stories of Sojan's phantom right-hand man, the warden of Hozukijo, a castle situated somewhere in the Kanabi province of Kusa no Kuni that doubled as a prison facility, or a gulag to be more accurate. It was a little-known fact grass country made a tidy profit from extraditing prisoners to their country of origin for a sizable fee. It was less messy and more lucrative than killing prisoners, though certainly more risky, hence the heavy fortifications and extensive use of Fuinjutsu to maintain order. On occasion, neighboring countries would send their prisoners to the facility to keep them on remand for trial or, if convicted, to sentence them to hell on earth. The prisoners that were worth nothing in Rio were worth their lives and labor. So you're the warden of Kanabi I've heard so much about? Jiraiya sat up straight and looked around to adjust his eyes to the light. The Kanabi province of Kusa no Kuni had been the only part of the country to have seen war during the Third Shinobi World War, and had thus been fortified since. If he recalled correctly, Minato had once destroyed a bridge in the province that served as vital infrastructure for IWA forces. For a prison, this place doesn't look too bad. Mui pursed his lips into a thin smile. I assure you, the tales you have heard are far from accurate. I neither posse's horns nor a tail. Yeah, and what about burning your prisoners alive for amusement? The sage looked the warden in the eye and could tell he was dangerous simply by looking at him. So, I'm awake. What happens now? Is this where you'll keep me until I inevitably break out of this place? Mui observed the toad sage in silence for a moment. Unfortunately, you will not remain under my supervision for much longer, the warden then informed. I was tasked only with overseeing your convalescence. Now that you are, as it would appear, fit and cognizant, I must release you to the custody of RENBU, who will be delivering you to the appropriate authorities for questioning. You mean interrogation and torture? Jiraiya smiled, though the situation far from called for it. You don't seem to approve. It was evident in the warden's body language. You don't want to be involved in any of this. You know Sojan's making a big mistake. Your assumptions are unfounded, I assure you, Mui answered rigidly, and you are no longer my concern. You know, from the few sources I heard about you, I was told you were sent to this place to serve as the warden because you spoke out of line. Jiraiya paid careful attention to his host. That tells me you're smart enough and courageous enough to know when to speak up when the powers that be, or in this case, the power that is, does something stupid. Like capturing a renowned shinobi of Konoha, for example. Pretty stupid, wouldn't you agree? You infiltrated a top-secret gathering and you were caught, so what does that make you? I was caught because I was betrayed. A meaningless distinction to you, but it makes all the difference to me. Mui raised a sharp eyebrow. Your point? I don't have a point, that was just my pride talking. If I were to have a point though, it'd be that Sojan is about to kick up a storm of shit nobody wants. If Sojan and his cronies think capturing me will intimidate Konoha, they couldn't be more wrong. It was a long shot, but Jiraiya knew if there was a sign of weakness, he ought to at least try to exploit it while he could. You're a smart man, Mui. You know that going down this road will not end well for anyone, least of all for Kusa. I know a great many things, Jiraiya-sama, but none of the foolishness you are projecting, and better than anything else, I know the chain of command, the warden of Hozuki Castle said firmly. Though you didn't know it well enough to keep your mouth shut when it could cost you, right? Jiraiya persisted, a little more desperate. If you hadn't disagreed with Sojan way back when, you wouldn't have been cut out of the decision-making, you'd still be in the central military compound, in the loop and of real use to your country, rather than being a glorified nanny to foreign criminals. What was it again that you did to make Sojan angry enough to exile you to this place? Mui's lifeless eyes hardened for a moment. Enough. Jiraiya crumpled over as a fiery sensation flared in his chest as though he were about to spontaneously burst aflame. That's a nasty piece of fuinjutsu you got there. It was difficult to breathe and strenuous to speak. Definitely not Uzumaki, but not bad. I've been instructed to offer you one, and only one, opportunity to cooperate fully before I turn you over, Mui informed as he unclenched his gloved hand and the scorching sensation subsided. Take it, and you will spend the rest of your days here in comfort. You will want for nothing but your freedom. Refuse me and I will have no choice but to hand you over and subject you to unimaginable pain and horrors. Jiraiya grinned despite himself. Worth a shot, he said to himself as he regained his composure and laid back down. I'm going to have to pass on that offer, Mui, but you think long and hard about what I told you. Something tells me we'll see each other again. I would not count on it, Mui replied as he folded his arms behind his back, once again adopting his rigid military stance, and several masked ANBU guards entered the room. Take him. Kusagaku. Moments after Naruto's escape, Sojan lay on the ground still as Konoha's Jinchuriki escaped. Every inch of his aging body was in pain. He was completely unable to move. Blood continued to flow from his elbow down, pooling beneath him in a warm bath of red though his body grew cold. It had been a long time since Sojan had experienced defeat. He had forgotten what that was like, to be beaten by someone, to be bested and lose so decisively. Perhaps it had been too long? Perhaps things would have gone differently if he hadn't been so confident, so sure of himself, but defeat did not taste bitter for Sojan. He felt something else entirely, something he could not properly label and process, something entirely unexpected. Sadness? A gasp escaped him as he felt emotions resurge, emotions he had not felt for many years resurface. There had been a moment when he believed death was inevitable, a moment of uncompromised honesty that lasted no longer than a second, a brief yet so hopeful second that stretched into seemingly timelessness, in which he had welcomed death and found comfort in it. Death would have been the salvation of his soul, his reunion with the one he loved more than life itself. Kimiko, he whispered her name breathlessly. My dear Kimiko. How he longed to see her again, to be with her again. He simply could not bear it. He could no longer stand to bear it. His shoulders were too old, weakened with age, and his bones too slow. But he was Sojan, the cutthroat shogun of Kusa no Kuni, the fearless leader of the Hidden Grass Village. He was the savior and protector of the people. Rein in your emotions. The old shinobi closed his eyes and drew a deep breath. I must be strong. My work is not yet done. The newly arrived Uzumaki clan members surrounded the shogun. Done sniveling, are you? Atsushi sneered at the elderly shinobi, and then turned to one of his guard. Nobuo, move him out of sight, he ordered the mountainous Uzumaki before turning to another direction. We have some company. The 46th clan leader of the Uzumaki clan stood in the path of Kakuzu. The tall shinobi came within sight, wandering through the broken remains of Kusagaki's military district with purpose in his steps. You took your time getting here, Atsushi remarked when the immortal came within hearing distance. What business do you have, Akatsuki? Kakuzu observed the hidden grass leader become enveloped in a protecting barrier, and carried away as he approached. It is of no concern to you. Everything is of my concern if I make it so, Atsushi replied coldly, narrowing his violet eyes. State your business. Will he live? Kakuzu asked simply, looking in the direction of Sojan. Atsushi took offense to the question. Of course he will. Then it is of no consequence to you, Kakuzu stated bluntly. You and your kind have been of use to us, but we do not work for you. Atsushi's violet eyes flared. Remember that, Akatsuki. But Kakuzu continued unimpressed. Unless Sojan is out of the picture, information on our organization remains on a need-to-know basis. The Akatsuki frontman smirked behind his face mask. Unless you are willing to formally join us, and take orders from a phantom too cowardly to show his face? Do not think for a second I believe you are the true leader of Akatsuki, Atsushi laughed in his face. I do not take orders, I give them. Suit yourself, Kakuzu said with seeming indifference as he scoped the area and took in the extent of damage that had been done. We have other matters to discuss. Namely damage control, within the village as well as outside of it. That is no concern of mine, Atsushi told the Akatsuki treasurer, as he found a sizable chunk of debris to sit on. Kakuzu chuckled condescendingly. Ah yes, the Uzumaki clan has a mutually beneficial relationship with Kusagaku, and now it is weakened there is nothing for you to benefit from, is that it? I suppose you only look the fool, the young clan leader said idly. Uzumaki do not believe in charity. How much? It was clear time was of the essence to all parties involved. Atsushi scoffed. You think you can buy me, Akatsuki? Then make your demands, Kakuzu said, his deep voice laced with impatience and irritation. You failed to mention the Kyubi Jinchuriki shares my blood. Atsushi regarded Kakuzu with a look of distrust and unveiled contempt. Information on our targets is on a need-to-know basis. The exceedingly tall Akatsuki member held his angry stare. As you are not a member of Akatsuki, there was no reason for you to know. If you want my cooperation, then that is my price, Atsushi demanded. I want the Kyubi Jinchuriki. Uzumaki Naruto, was it? That can be arranged, Biju included. What? Kakuzu's outburst coincided with a chakra spike as his temper flared. What game are you playing, boy? The Uzumaki guards surrounded the immortal instantly, their chains melding in containment barrier. Call them off. Now, Atsushi waved off his guards with a simple hand gesture. You would do well to remember not to threaten me again, Akatsuki. Explain yourself, Kakuzu demanded gruffly. The Kyubi has been in the possession of the Uzumaki clan ever since the wife of the Shodai Hokage, Uzumaki Mito, became its first Jinchuriki. Atsushi idly inspected his nails for dirt. It is only fitting the beast is returned to its rightful masters. No deal, Kakuzu denied flatly. Absolutely not. Then tell whoever is truly in charge of your pitiful organization that we are done. Atsushi got up and smoothed the creases out of his fine cloak. The Uzumaki clan will withdraw its support from Kusagaku. If you wish to continue making use of our services to protect your secrets, then by all means, we are open to business. However, know that the fee has doubled. No, tripled, now that we are no longer allies. I thought you didn't care about money. Kakuzu held his composure. Atsushi looked him in the eye. I don't. You play a dangerous game, Kakuzu warned. Boy, Atsushi glowered at the insult. Make that quadrupled. He gathered his companions. Once Sojan is stabilized, you can have him back. Wait. Kakuzu clenched his jaw. Very well. Have it your way. If you want the Kyubi that badly, you'll have to capture it yourselves. Oh? Perhaps you should run back to your master for his approval first? Atsushi smirked. No need, Kakuzu assured suspiciously quick. If the cost of doing business is 1 biju out of 9, he will understand. Of course he will. But in return you will have your current costs. Of course, Atsushi conceded with a mocking, theatrical bow. As a token of friendship, of course. We'll be in touch, he said before leaving the scene. Enjoy yourself while you can, boy, Kakuzu thought darkly as he watched the young man go. You'll regret playing this game. Kusa no Kuni, elsewhere. So did you win? Ahu. Naruto sat cross-legged across Karin as they rode on Senzaru's back over Kusa no Kuni towards the west in the direction of Hai no Kuni. As it turned out, his new companion was incredibly talkative and inquisitive. So Sojan is dead? I thought you were a super sensory type or something. I was pretty busy deserting my village. Ahu. So is he? What? Dead? It was getting rather annoying. Naruto frowned as he answered. No. What do you mean no? Karin said as though offended by his answer. I didn't kill him. The failure of his mission still weighed heavily on his mind. Sojan may have tasted defeat and humility, but his convalescence would not take a backseat to damage control. The shogun would retaliate one way or another, that much was inevitable, and it was likely at least some of Kusa's allies would not be so easily discouraged. Why not? Karin persisted. Your dickhead of a clan leader showed up and got in the way, Naruto snapped at her. Karin was far from impressed with his outburst. So what, you just ran away like a coward? There were 5 of them, and I was exhausted. Of course I ran away. So how did you escape? She asked without missing a beat. Didn't I say I had questions for you when I picked you up? Naruto reminded her dryly. Karin blinked. Then asked them, why? But before you do, let me ask you one last question, she said before he could get a word in. You're an Uzumaki, there's no doubt about it, but you're not a pureblood. On whose side, your father? My mother, Naruto answered her mildly irritated. Is she still alive? No. He didn't know why he hesitated in answering. He never did before he found out his parents' identities. She died a long time ago. Given your age, I'm assuming she was part of the second exodus, Karin said more to herself, holding her chin in thought. Right, Naruto blinked at the strange term. Second exodus? The hell is that? You don't know? The deserter titled her head, seemingly nonplussed by his ignorance. Really? I wouldn't ask if I didn't, Naruto said irritably. He wasn't as well versed in shinobi history as he would have liked to be, and while he had tried to fix that in his spare time, he still had a lot to learn, and there was much of shinobi history he was completely ignorant of. There's no need to scowl, Karin said testily with a frown of her own. I'm not sure how much you know of your mother's heritage, so I'll keep it simple. The Uzumaki clan was decimated in the First Shinobi World War along with all of Yuzu no Kuni. I know that. Don't interrupt, Karin snapped. Like I was saying, the silent massacre of Yuzu no Kuni nearly wiped out all inhabitants. A considerable number of survivors made it to the underground labyrinths in time though, and after it was over they resurfaced. The country was lost, but the surviving Uzumaki remained on the island for years, recalling all Uzumaki that had been outside Yuzu during the assault to rebuild, but things didn't go so smoothly. See, the Uzumaki clan was a clan of intellectuals and scholars from different schools of thought. They were always at odds before the attack, and after the destruction of Yuzu the clan split into 2 factions, one that wanted to stay and rebuild their old way of life, and another that saw their survival as an opportunity to leave and rebuild elsewhere. Many of the younger generations of Yuzu no Kuni were in favor of leaving, and so they left. That's when the first exodus occurred. Kusa. It made perfect sense now why there were Uzumaki still alive and well, and seemingly in considerable numbers, unbeknownst to the entire world. The first exodus Uzumaki rebuilt in Kusa, didn't they? Most of them did, Karin nodded. Though others went elsewhere. Some relocated to Kaze no Kuni, figuring their red hair and affinity for wind wouldn't be considered as suspicious, and married into other clans or simply changed their names. The vast majority of the first exodus chose Kusa no Kuni as their new home because the Uzumaki did a lot of business with Kusa in the past and had fostered beneficial relationships. They lived in a hidden compound in the countryside, posing as a village of humble farmers and craftsmen. A lot of them actually left the shinobi life behind them. You said my mother was probably a part of the second exodus. What makes you think that? Naruto was curious to learn more of his heritage. None of the tomes Hiruzen had made available to him covered as much as he would have liked. Most predated the supposed extinction of his clan, and those that didn't focused only on the mystery behind their extinction and offered only theories on what became of the survivors. There weren't many Uzumaki left to begin with, and most distrusted Hai no Kuni and Konoha after the fall of Yuzu, Karin summed up simply. The Uzumaki that remained on Yuzu-no-Kuni were mostly the older generations, too proud and ingrained in their traditions to even consider moving. Eventually, they didn't have much of a choice, and that's when the second exodus happened. What do you mean? Naruto raised a curious eyebrow. Well, like I said, it was mostly the old folk that stayed behind. After a few years, there simply wasn't any room for the clan to grow with such a small population, and so what was left of the newer generation decided to disperse. Some of them joined us here, others found home elsewhere, and only one moved to Konoha. Karin finished with a meaningful look at Naruto. I think you know who I mean by that. Naruto regarded Karin with narrowed eyes. How? Don't underestimate the Uzumaki clan's information-gathering skills, Karin said pointedly. She had deserted her clan but not her pride in her heritage. How do you think Sojan rose to power? That made enough sense for Naruto not to press further for the time being. It was troubling, but she was a well of information when it came to the Uzumaki clan, information he wasn't likely to uncover from any other source. So the Uzumaki and Kusa knew of my mother? Of course they did, Karin answered as though the question struck her as foolish. The first Exodus Uzumaki remained in contact with the Uzumaki on Yuzu-no-Kuni for many years. When word reached them of a Uzumaki born with incredibly powerful chakra even by Uzumaki standards, there were talks of reuniting the clan by marriage, though that fell through when the Shodai's wife, Uzumaki Mido, was dying at a time that coincided with the second Exodus and chose your mother as her successors. Naruto did not bother to hide his disgust or relief. Thank fuck for that. You do realize your mother was seen as a gift, don't you? Karin asked curiously. She was the Uzumaki's clan's last token of friendship to Konoha. Can you genuinely say she was better with them, repurposed as a Jinchuriki, rather than be with her family? Naruto wanted to say his mother loved him, that she loved his father, and that she had no regrets, but did he have the right to presume she would have chosen the life of a Jinchuriki? It didn't feel right, and thus he didn't answer the question. Karin thankfully fell quiet as they sat in uncomfortable silence. There was still much he wanted to know of the Uzumaki clan, but it appeared he would have to wait as he noticed a trail of blood and crumpled feathers on Senzaru's side. Senzaru, are you injured? It's nothing, Naruto-sama. Just a scratch. The peregrine Falcon sounded strained and tired. It was clear he had suffered in silence for a significant amount of time, judging from the flash of pain in his eyes. Naruto cursed his inattentiveness. You're hurt, Senzaru. Land so I can take a look at you. A part of him wished he could simply blame Karin for distracting him, but he knew Senzaru's health was his responsibility, as the holder of the Falcon contract. I'm sorry, buddy. I'll get you patched up and feeling better in no time. We have much ground to cover. Senzaru insisted on remaining in the air, but Naruto would not hear it, and patted the falcon on its back, smoothing its feathers. He wasn't the only one that had been in a fierce battle. I'll have to make time to thank the falcons and the toads properly, he thought as his winged familiar began a steady descent to a clear patch of grass in a nearby canopy. Iya, are we going to have to walk all the way to Konoha now? Karin complained, whining. That'll take forever. Naruto hopped off as they touched down, and immediately began to examine Senzaru's wounds. Looks like you gave as good as you got, he noted from the thick coat of blood on the falcon's talons. What was it? A dragonfly, Senzaru answered, wincing at his touch. It had an unusually sharp tail and caught me by surprise. A dragonfly, huh? Naruto charged his hands green with healing chakra and placed it on the open wound, taking care to ease the falcon's pain as he tried to close it. I ran into one of those. They're pretty damn fast. Fast enough to keep up with you? You must be losing your touch for the wind. In case you haven't noticed, buddy, I don't have wings. I gotta cheat my way into the sky. The two bantered for a while as Naruto tended to the falcon's wounds, much to Karin's curiosity. You're pretty close to your summons, aren't you? That's pretty unusual, she commented. How so? Naruto spared her a glance in between smoothing weathers to take the blood out of them. Karin crossed her arms and looked at him as though he said something outrageous. Typically shinobi don't treat their summons like their friends. I mean, why would they? Once you sign a contract, the summons become subordinates to their contract holder. Is that so? Naruto couldn't help but laugh at the notion. What's so funny? Nothing really. In his mind, a meeting between Gamabunta and Karin played itself out rather humorously. I don't know about other contract holders, but the way I see it, once you sign a contract, you place your unconditional trust in the animals you summon. To me that means being equals. Senzaru isn't my subordinate to boss around, he's my friend and a damn good one at that since he saved my ass. You honor me, Naruto-sama. He's still a stickler for honorifics though. Naruto rolled his eyes at Karin and then turned as he stroked the falcon's beak. You and Gamma Hero really looked out for me back there. I'll be sure to repay the favor someday. Now go home and rest. Feel free to call upon another of my kin to see you home, Naruto-sama. Naruto nodded as he took a step back. You get plenty of rest, okay? I'll summon you in a few days to treat you to something good in Konoha. I look forward to it. Now then, if you'll excuse me. Senzaru bowed his large head respectfully and disappeared in a large burst of smoke a moment later. You ready? Naruto looked to Karin as he began to stretch. Wait, you're not summoning another? She said, already a petulant tone in her voice at the prospect of walking. But Konoha is so far away. We're walking, Naruto said a few paces ahead. I'm not summoning another Falcon just to fly us to Konoha. For one, I already asked a lot from them when I asked them to fight with me, and two, my chakra levels are pretty damn low, so if we're attacked, I'd like to be able to fight back at least a little. Normally his chakra reserves would have recovered enough to risk it by now, but the reinforcement Seal Hiruzen created for him locked the fox out almost completely outside of gradually strengthening his chakra and adding to his reserves. Thus replenishing his chakra was entirely on him alone. What if I replenish your chakra? Karin offered as she caught up. Will you summon a falcon then? Naruto looked at her as they walked further into the forest, somewhat curious and impressed. You can do that? Yep, sure can. Well, not all of it. Interesting. Ahu. So will you? Nope. Why the hell not? They disappeared into the forestry, arguing almost every step of the way. Naruto's seemingly countless questions were forgotten for the moment, as he focused on returning to Konoha first. There would be time for questions later. All he wanted to do now was go home and sleep. Konohagakure. Sakura made her way over to Yamanka Flowers in a hurry. Her master had made it rather clear she was free to share the good news with her peers. They would likely all be relieved to hear Naruto was okay. More than okay, in fact. Sakura had done some reading over the past few days. Being the Hokage's apprentice certainly did not come without its perks, and she was fortunately allowed limited access to classified intelligence. There wasn't much Konoha had on Sojan, the introvert Kusugakure leader, who sometimes went years without being spotted in the public eye. Though thought of as a recluse, Sojan's reputation spoke for itself as a tried and tested battle commander. Ruthless and cutthroat were amongst favorites when describing the shogun of Kusa. Sakura's stomach still crawled when she remembered parts of the documents made available to her that suggested Sojan had possibly set into motion a program with the aim of eliminating promising young shinobi observed during Chunin exams before they could become a threat to Kusa. Sakura was fairly certain she wouldn't have been on the shortlist compiled during the Chunin exam she took in part in with Team 7. Sasuke definitely would have, as the last Uchiha left in Konoha and a prodigy. There was no doubt in her mind he would have made the list. As for Naruto, she wasn't so sure. As a Jinchuriki he would have definitely been observed, but that wasn't common knowledge in Konoha, so she doubted Kusa knew, and even if they did, they might have written him off. People tended to underestimate Naruto, herself included. Hey Sakura, what's the rush? Ino greeted as the Rosette walked in. You're in a good mood. Sakura outwardly beamed. It wasn't often she was the bearer of good news. Naruto fought Sojan and won. What? Ino's face lit up with astonishment. Really? When? Who told you? Come on, tell me. I came straight from Tsunade-sama's office, Sakura explained to her. I was allowed to watch. He really did a number on Kusugakure. You saw him? Sakura nodded. It's a long story. You wouldn't believe how much he has changed, Ino. It's like he's a completely different person. That's great. Ino cheered as she got from behind the counter and embraced the Rosette. So Naruto's okay, right? Sakura's smile diminished somewhat. He seemed really tired and beat up by the end of it. He was bleeding a lot. I think he's going to be okay though. Wait, you said you came here straight from the tower? Ino recalled. Sasuke-kun doesn't know? Ino released her with a look of surprise. You should really go tell him. I was actually going to tell him first, but he usually trains at this time and you were on the way, Sakura admitted as she headed towards the door. Let the others know, okay? Elsewhere in Konoha, Sasuke stood before a boulder formation riddled with holes, staring at his dominant hand with seeming fascination. He wore his off-duty clothing, a simple blue shirt kimono with the Uchiha emblem on his collar tied with a rope belt, and black trousers and sandals. In addition to the Uchiha clan emblem, the new military police emblem was stitched on his left sleeve over his bicep. Again. The Uchiha raised his hand once more. Chirping noises flooded his ears as he loosely gripped lightning in his hand and thrust his arm forward, straightening his fingers like a blade. The lightning bolted from his hand and formed into a spear roughly 18 feet long, easily capable of piercing the rock formation. About 5 meters is my maximum. Sasuke, he turned off his Sharingan. Chi! His displeasure tasted sour in his mouth. It's not enough. Have I really changed? While Sasuke had worked hard in the past year to hone his skills, he was no less uncertain of himself, no less doubtful of his own skill, and yet at the same time as proud as ever, of himself, of his efforts. Or so he thought. He had hit it well when he heard the news, but Naruto's activity in Uzumaki came as a surprise, to put it mildly. Had the gap only grown bigger between them? Though he hated to admit it, and would never do so out loud, Sasuke knew Naruto had been a shade more powerful when he left to train with the Sarutobi clan. With the knowledge that the Sandaime himself would overlook his training, Sasuke had been more motivated than ever to catch up, to surpass Naruto, and to once again be a step ahead. To that end he had devoted every waking moment he had to training, to honing his skills, to push and overcome his limitations. But had it been enough? You don't want to be like Uzumaki, Anko had told him a few weeks into their training together. There's a stupidity prerequisite to be like that kid. Idiots like Uzumaki, the strong ones, they're stronger than everyone else but they die young. Because they don't fight for themselves. No, they're not that smart. They fight for things bigger than themselves, things they think are worth dying for. Sasuke clenched his fists tight. Stupid, I know, but it's the reason why they can do things others can't. Idiots like Uzumaki are fueled by their emotions, it's what motivates them to become stronger, and it's what they base their decisions on. There's nothing wrong with being a coward. You want to live, then be like me, be a fucking coward. There won't be much glory in it for you, not tales of heroism or anything like that, but you'll live to see things others won't. You want to die young and have a plaque with your name on some slab of rock to show for it, then I can't help you. What good would living a long life do if he couldn't acquire the power he needed to realize his ambitions? Did they even matter anymore? Life had been good to him, all things considered, ever since he graduated from the academy. His time with Team 7 had opened his heart little by little, and he had grown in ways he hadn't considered possible before, in ways he didn't want to grow until he did. Sasuke never intended to make friends. He never intended to care about anyone or anything aside from his ambitions, and yet he did care. Little by little, as time went by, Sasuke grew to care about his friends, about his career, about being there for those he cared about, starting with his team at first, and then, before he knew it, people he hardly even interacted with. Even Anko, Sasuke had begun to care too much, and as a result, with each and every passing day, the poisonous hatred in his heart that once clouded his judgment, and gave him tunnel vision, grew smaller and smaller. The curse seal of heaven hadn't bothered Sasuke for nearly 4 months now. I wonder. Mother, father. Sasuke looked at his hand. Would you forgive me if I sought another path? Another life different from this one. In his heart he knew there was nothing to forgive, but he wished, prayed even, for the first time in years, for a sign of their approval. Unbeknownst to Sasuke, he was not alone in the forest. Tobi observed the young Uchiha, perched in a tree nearby with a clear vantage point, and his presence masked perfectly. He has potential, Black Zetsu said as he emerged from the bark. Enough to surpass Itachi-san? White Zetsu questioned. Surely not. He has the potential, Tobi acknowledged as they observed the young Uchiha. Though he is too raw to be of use to me now. You might not need him. Itachi hasn't acted out in well over a year. I agree, White Zetsu concurred with his counterpart. Itachi-san has been an asset. Itachi's betrayal is only a matter of time, Tobi stated with certainty. He must be suspecting Nagato, and I to make our move any day now. Then why would he stay with Akatsuki? Isn't it obvious? If he leaves, Sasuke will become a greater target than before. If Itachi defects from Akatsuki, he will be hunted. Nagato would not rest until he found him, the masked man elaborated. White Zetsu put it together from there. If Itachi-san was hunted down by Akatsuki, then he couldn't intimidate Danzo into staying away from Sasuke. Between a rock and a hard place, as they say, Black Zetsu chuckled ominously. For now it suits him just fine to play nice and follow orders, but the moment he acts out of line, he's finished and Sasuke will pay the price. And you want Nagato-san to take him out before he can do damage, White Zetsu realized looking at the masked man. Why don't you do it yourself? Itachi is too dangerous, but he is useful to Nagato. If I tried to dispose of him myself, Nagato wouldn't stand for it, Tobi explained concisely. Nagato has to come to the desire to kill Itachi on his own. It's a delicate situation. It is indeed, Tobi agreed, eyes remaining on the young Uchiha. Even if it were the right time, making Sasuke see things my way could prove difficult. Deep down he still wants to kill Itachi, but his heart has softened. Enko has seen to that. Speaking of Orochimaru, he could be of use, Black Zetsu suggested. His betrayal aside, he has taken a personal interest in Sasuke. I've considered it myself, Toby acknowledged after a brief pause. Sasuke would certainly be more malleable if we let Orochimaru take him under his wing for a while. Orochimaru might take his body. White Zetsu raised the concern they were all thinking. It would be risky. It's a risk we may have to take. Sasuke-kun, a newcomer, Toby said as a pink-haired girl approached the subject of their surveillance. We'll continue this elsewhere. The masked man disappeared in a vortex, followed by his conjoined companions who melded into the surroundings and disappeared from sight. Sasuke turned to find Sakura running his way. Sakura, there you are, Sakura said slightly out of breath. Training hard? No more than usual, Sasuke replied as he wiped the sweat off his brow and grabbed a water bottle. What is it? It's Naruto, Sakura said sounding giddy. He's coming home, so he won. Sasuke sounded strangely relieved as though it confused him. Good, Tsunade-sama let me watch, Sakura shared, hoping to get a more enthusiastic response, though she knew better than to expect. He's really changed a lot. She could still hardly believe it had been the same Naruto they had grown up with. You saw him? Sasuke gave her a look of mild confusion. How? It's a long story, but a toad from Mount Mayaboku came with a crystal ball that somehow let us watch Naruto fight. Sakura gave a hurried explanation. Anyway, he's really changed. Sasuke-kun, he can fly. Fly? Sasuke stared blankly as she nodded. Tell me everything. That'll take a while, Sasuke-kun, and I really want to be the first to tell Rei-chan before anyone else gets the chance, Sakura said hesitantly. It was unusual of her to deny his request, but it wasn't every day she could be the bearer of such good news. Sasuke swallowed his pride for the sake of curiosity. Please, okay, Sakura quickly conceded. Kusa no Kuni border to Hai no Kuni. Naruto and Karin traveled through mountainous terrains as they made their way across the border into Hai no Kuni. They had been climbing for several hours now, with only a handful of short breaks in between. The sun was already setting once again, and Naruto wondered how much longer his patience would last. Karin was, to put it mildly, a trying individual. She was rude, abrasive, and astoundingly narcissistic, concerned with only two things: herself and the one she had become inexplicably infatuated and obsessed by beyond reasonable standards. If you're not a fucking well of information when we get back to Konoha, you're on your own, Naruto told her as he carried her on his back up the mountain trail. Karin had rather aggressively refused to carry her own weight up the mountain only 5 minutes in. She claimed that her non-combative background had resulted in below-average stamina. Naruto knew that to be bullshit, but carrying her was easier than arguing with her, and if there was one thing Karin excelled at more than anything, it was arguing until the lost the will to live. Yeah? Why are you so mean? Karin whined in his ear in a thick, obnoxious voice. I've been nothing but pleasant to you. Oh sure, you've been a treat, he replied sarcastically. Hey, it's not easy for a beautiful young maiden as beautiful as myself to trust someone of questionable appearance such as yourself. Questionable appearance? You look like a delinquent with your long hair, and you smell funny. You spend a year living with the Sarutobi clan, and see if you come out of smelling like roses. The Sarutobi clan, huh? I guess that explains the smell and the looks, and your brutish behavior. Can you please just shut up? Naruto practically begged as he trudged along, an itching sweat breaking on his forehead that he badly wanted to scratch. If I knew she wouldn't rub it in my face somehow, I'd be tempted to summon a falcon. Fine, we'll talk about something else. Tell me what Sasuke-kun is like. Again? He groaned, annoyed. Yes, again. What do you expect me to say? He's just a guy. Sasuke-kun is not just some guy. How would you know? You don't even know him. That's irrelevant. I could tell from just looking at him. Sasuke-kun is special. So, what's he into? You're gonna have to be clearer than that. I mean, what are his likes? Well, Naruto looked up in thought. He was pulling a blank on that one. Huh? I guess he doesn't really have any. I mean, he's always either brooding or training, if that counts. Oh, come on. He must have a lot of friends, right? I bet he's super popular. Yeah, sure, the girls like him. I don't know about friends though. He's kind of a dick to everyone. Ouch. Naruto felt an urge to rub the sore spot on his arm as Karin withdrew an angry fist. What's your problem? Why you got some nerve talking like that in my presence? Karin stammered, red in the face. Apologize. Naruto rolled his eyes at her. Look, we'll be in Konoha soon enough. You can bother Sasuke all you want then. So long as you hold your end of the bargain and cooperate. Yeah, whatever. Just tell me more about Sasuke-kun. You said you were close, right? No, I didn't. Like I said, he's kind of a D-loner. Naruto quickly corrected himself before he caught another punch to the arm. You know, you should really lower your expectations. Yeah? You sound kinda jealous. I bet you have no appeal at all with the ladies back home, Karin said in her thickest and most obnoxious voice yet. Naruto sneered as smugly as he could. I'll have you know I have a beautiful girl waiting for me back home. I don't believe you, Karin said dryly. It's the truth. Okay, what's her name? What? Your girlfriend, Karin said with air quotation marks. I bet she doesn't even exist. Naruto rolled his eyes at her again. You're an idiot, you know that, right? Ha! I knew it. You don't, Rei. He cut her off as they walked around a sizable boulder in their path. Her name is Rei, and she's kind and beautiful and a hell of a lot smarter than I am. Yeah, right, I bet she really fat and Yuji. Naruto dropped the redhead suddenly and unceremoniously, and watched her roll over the ground holding her behind in pain, screaming some of the most unladylike words he had ever heard. What the hell was that for? Karin screeched like a banshee. I'll kill you, you bastard! You need a filter, Naruto told her, as she got up looking as though she was about to come at him. Don't. Karin glowered but checked herself. You wouldn't hurt a girl, would you? You're not just a girl though, are you? Your family, Naruto grinned at her. As far as I'm concerned, you're fair game for an ass-kicking if you come at me. Yeah, I'm sure you'd like to put the hurt on someone after you ran with your tail tucked between your legs. Karin hissed. In case you forgot, I beat Sojan. Despite himself, Naruto knew she had struck a chord. Karin got in her face, standing flat-footed and angry. Oh, you beat a senior citizen. Well, aren't you a tough guy? Senior citizen, my ass. Curious how you ran the second. Karin's eyes widened mid-sentence. Get down! She shouted, pushing him to the ground as a barrage of kunai came flying their way. A kunai grazed Naruto's arm and drew blood as they went down. That was close. They scrambled to their feet and took cover behind a large rock formation. Naruto stayed low, keeping a staying hand on Karin. He had only gotten a glimpse of their attackers. Now's a good time to put your sensory perception to good use. There are 12 of them. They probably belong to a clan of shinobi that live in these parts, Karin said as their enemies repositioned. They're not officially part of Kuzugaku, but they do business with Sojan. Though they might not even know we're on Sojan's shit list. And you didn't think to share that with me? Naruto hissed, sparing her an angry glance in between scouring the area from their shallow vantage point behind the large rock. We just wandered into their damn territory. I thought you knew. Who infiltrates a country without having an exfiltration plan? Karin hissed right back at him. This could have been avoided altogether if you had just summoned another Falcon, you stingy bastard. Oh, I am so fucking sick of your shit. Naruto grit his teeth. He did his best to rein in his anger, though it was a challenge. Where are they? You're going to fight them? Karin said incredulously. Don't be an idiot. They knew the lay of the land better than anyone. It'll be like fighting ghosts. You're damn right I'm going to fight them. Naruto ground at her as he fine-tuned his senses for the slightest shift in the air. Their enemies were masters of their environment, and had masked their presence perfectly. Fuck this country and everyone in it. Hey, fuck you too. Just tell me where they are. Naruto created a single Kage Bunshin to stay with her. They caught me at real bad time to piss me off, and the fact they think they can just attack anyone that crosses the fucking mountain without warning. Who knows how many people they'd killed just for being on their turf. That kind of indiscriminate killing, it really pisses me off. Did you graduate yesterday? If I have to ask you where they are one more time, I'm tossing you over this rock. His voice sounded so cold he sensed her apprehension as she adjusted her glasses and closed her eyes to concentrate. They split up into groups and they're coming at us from 3 directions, Karin relayed a moment later. The closest group is 50 yards that way. Naruto disappeared from sight, scaling the large rock in a burst of speed and surging towards the enemy. He heard their astonishment, unusual given how skilled they had been in sneaking up on them, but understandable given the fact Karin had located their position with pinpoint accuracy. Naruto didn't give them much time to reach and came flying at them, kicking one in the chest so hard he heard his sternum break under his soul as the shinobi flew down the mountain to certain death. He dodged several climbing hooks from a second shinobi in gray camouflage attire before he ducked and slammed a Rasengan in his stomach as the remaining 2 scattered. They weren't fast enough, however, and he quickly caught up with them with a quick body flicker, dispatching each one with bone-breaking, Sarutobi clan taijutsu aimed for their joints and ribs to put them down ruthlessly with minimal effort. They weren't dead but would be without immediate medical attention judging from their labored breathing. The two remaining groups seemed to realize he was a bigger threat than they had anticipated. Not some hopeless target, am I? Doton, Yomi Numa! Naruto pressed his hands together and placed them on the ground, reminded of the Toad Sage for a brief second as he performed the swamp of the underworld jutsu and swept the rocky terrain, a torrential mudslide that flowed in great volume and pace, creating a veritable swamp of mud that forced his attackers to scatter lest they be caught and swallowed whole. He caught two of them in his swamp and quickly made them disappear from sight, suffocating them with sheer volumes of mud. I'm not done yet, assholes. Doton, Dori Yuden no Jutsu. A large dragon head emerged from the mud, maw parting as spat out the corpses of the unfortunate two and fired a barrage of mud projectiles that hardened upon impact. Another two of the mountain shinobi went down quickly, dropping like anvils in their new mud-made straitjackets that grew into full-body cocoons. Naruto decided they were the lucky ones as he aimed his earth dragon to fire another barrage and performed a string of hand seals that concluded with the tiger seal. This particular technique combination was a favorite of the old man. He had faced it plenty of times in the past year. Katan, Karya Enden no Jutsu. Naruto jumped on the earth dragon's head and had it rise higher in the air as he exhaled and breathed a sizable, high-pressure stream of fire that covered the mud projectiles, increasing their lethality exponentially. Another three went down as they scrambled for cover, scorched to death in their mud cocoons. Retreat! Looks like they finally realized they bit off more than they could chew. Naruto continued to fire his deadly barrage at the retreating shinobi. They were rather good at using the mountainous environment to their advantage and managed to scatter, completely disappearing from sight within seconds. Karin, that was fucking amazing! Karin shouted behind him. Where did they go? His own sensory aptitude wasn't fine-tuned enough to pick them out. They had completely blended with the environment. Karin, they've retreated, she finally answered. I can still sense them, but it's not worth pursuing them. They'll just outrun us. They left their wounded, Naruto noted as the earth dragon descended into the mud and cancelled out. No, he said when Karin pulled out a kunai. The redhead looked at him angry. Why? They tried to kill us. If their comrades don't come back for them, they'll die anyway, Naruto told her as he gathered his things. If they're lucky, they'll live. Either way, they're no longer a threat to us. You're showing them mercy after they just tried to kill you, Karin said incredulously. You know they kill anyone that comes around these parts, right? Even unarmed civilians trying to get out of the country. It's not mercy. Naruto gave the wounded shinobi one last look. My gramps told me the mark of a great shinobi is knowing when taking a life is necessary and when it isn't. These men are beaten, and killing them won't gain us anything but more blood on my hands. What kind of shinobi are you? The redhead snapped irritably. He kept the answer to that question simple. The kind that doesn't enjoy killing but will when it's necessary and won't when it isn't. Sounds like your gramps doesn't know what he's talking about. Killing is a shinobi's duty. It's what we do, one way or another, Karin said bitterly. When you live to be as old and wise as the Sandaime Hokage, feel free to change my mind, but until then, I suggest you shut up. Naruto began to climb the mountain trail once more, looking once over his shoulder. You coming? Karin stood firm for a stubborn moment as he continued to climb the mountain trail before releasing a frustrated screech and following suit. Oto no Kuni, Otogakure HQ. The heavy steel doors groaned as they opened and allowed entry to the long, torchlit hall where Orochimaru spent most of his time, seated on a throne with a vast arrangement of assorted tonics, elixirs and potions by his side. Sasaki Genji, the serpent acknowledged as he downed a green concoction, smacking his lips at the putrid taste. You've brought guests. Sasaki dragged two unconscious men across the floor by the scruff of their necks. I made some interesting friends, Orochimaru-sama, and you brought them here? Kabuto said disapprovingly, his glasses reflected in the light of the fire. Without permission? I'm sure you'll forgive me once you hear what I've learned, Sasaki replied confidently as he easily threw the men before the throne. These men are Kusugakure and Bu. I hope for your sake that's not all you learn, Kabuto warned. No, of course not. I wouldn't have bothered bringing them here if that was the case, Sasaki assured smoothly. I'm not the best at interrogation, but I managed to get something out of them. They were on their way to a prisoner transport, and? Orochimaru sounded impatient. They're black site officers, Orochimaru-sama, the swordsman informed. Specifically, they're black site officers that were stationed at the same holding facility as an old friend of yours. Now that is interesting, Orochimaru cackled approvingly, much to his bespectacled henchman's displeasure. But what good does that information do me? Well, if you manage to secure the release of Jiraiya, then Konoha and their allies will commit their resources to hunting down the Akatsuki once they learn of their relationship with Sojan and the minor villages, Kabuto cut in passive-aggressively. Isn't that right, Sasaki? I thought you were a stickler for honorifics. Now, Kabuto. Orochimaru chided frivolously for a moment. How did you know where to find them, Genji-kun? I got a tip from an old friend, an information broker I did some work for a few years ago, Sasaki answered. He's not a friend of Sojan, and he knew I work for you now, so he probably thought I'd use this to get in your good graces since you're not a friend of Sojan's either these days. Well, this certainly is a welcome surprise. Orochimaru licked his lips with his freakishly long tongue. Kabuto will verify what you have told me. Of course, Sasaki nodded his understanding, and then, when the time is right, Orochimaru said as he poured his goblet with another concoction, I will send you to make contact with Konoha. You want me to reach out to them directly? The last time the swordsman had come into contact with Konoha, he wound up hospitalized for a week. I can't make promises for my behavior if I run into that blonde bastard. I see, Orochimaru chuckled amused. Then I will send a chaperone. That's not necessary, Sasaki retracted quickly. Besides, I'm sure Kabuto-san wouldn't enjoy my company. Don't worry, Kabuto is far too valuable to risk capture, the serpent said, to which Kabuto seemed to swell with pride. Genyomaru-kun. A shift in the wind signaled the arrival of a new presence in the throne room. Orochimaru-sama. Sasaki felt a shiver run down his spine, and spun with his sword half drawn on the man behind him. Genyomaru was a young man with shoulder-length white hair and dark purple eyes. He wore a simple yellow tunic and a purple rope belt over his chest and waist and exuded an air confidence. 2. Who is this? Sasaki pushed his sword in its sheath. He could tell the newcomer was formidable, to say the least. Your chaperone. Orochimaru swirled the elixir in his hand. Genyomaru-kun is a very capable young man. He will accompany you on your mission and make sure things go smoothly. I don't need a partner, Orochimaru-sama, Sasaki said. The notion of being supervised dealt a seriously blow to his pride. I was only joking. I wasn't, Orochimaru replied coldly. Sasaki held his tongue, knowing arguing with the serpent was not only an exercise in futility, but also that second-guessing Orochimaru was an excellent way of losing one's life quickly, if he were in a merciful mood. As you wish. Good. Orochimaru reclined in his throne. Leave us. Genyomaru held the door open for the mercenary and let it come to a groaning close. He doesn't seem to like me very much, Orochimaru-sama. Oh, he'll come around, the Sannin said fondly. If he knows what is good for him, he's up to something. Kabuto shared his suspicion. I don't believe a word of his story. It does seem a little convenient, Orochimaru agreed as he drowned his drink. Genyomaru-kun, the snake called sweetly. Yes, Orochimaru-sama? Keep a close eye on Sasaki-kun for me, won't you? Of course, Orochimaru-sama. Kusa no Kuni, Kanabi Province. Jiraiya awoke on a soft surface, in a bright and spacious room. He was warm and comfortable for the first time in a very long time. He sat up as he covered his eyes with his hand and tried to adjust to the light. A familiar voice spoke up. It would appear you were right. Jiraiya began to laugh. Slowly at first, beginning with a low chuckle, and then, before he could even see his host, he laughed loudly, almost hysterically, until his voice went hoarse. Kusa no Kuni, Hai no Kuni border. Once Naruto and Karin had made it down the mountainside, they decided to stay off the roads, knowing it was possible Kusa search parties would boldly cross the border into Fire Country to find them. Naruto also made the conscious decision to keep Karin out of sight. She was rather passionate, to put it mildly. She talked his ear off the entire time they had been together, incessantly asking questions about anything and everything, down to the most mundane details, and by the time they had begun their descent, Naruto gave up on trying to pay attention. The redhead was adamant not to spill anything until they got back to Konoha, where should be taken in under their protection as a defector in possession of invaluable information, or that was what she claimed to have. Naruto wasn't so sure anymore. Just for the sake of my peace of mind, he probed lightly. Exactly what kind of information do you have again? Forget it, Karin refused flatly. Don't you worry your pretty little head though. Nah, she paused, furrowing her brows. Natsu? Naruto, he corrected irritably. Did you seriously just forget my name? We've been traveling together for over a day. I can't help it, you're not very interesting, Karin said with brutal honesty. You don't have much appeal, you know? He rolled his eyes at her. Arguing with her was more than pointless. It was damn exhausting, and he didn't want to give the chatterbox any more reason to keep yammering in his ear. Just for future reference, don't try pulling any of this shit with the Hokage. She won't hesitate to. Sure. Karin pressed a finger to her lips for emphasis and looked around as she whispered. We're surrounded. What? Naruto tensed for a second and then adopted a fighting stance. How the hell did that happen? I thought you were supposed to a super sensor. Yeah, well, shut up. Karin panned their surroundings. These guys are really good. Naruto groaned tiredly. This was the last thing he needed. We know you're here. Come out. He hadn't expected that to work when it did. In an instant, a dozen masked shinobi appeared in a circle formation around them, effectively sealing off their escape. Naruto immediately recognized their attire and sighed out of relief. We were waiting for you, Rooster said as he broke formation and approached. We were hoping you'd be traveling on foot. Naruto stared at the man a long time. This was one of Jiraiya's old students, and once a teammate to his father, something he hadn't thought to mention it the last time they met, though it was hardly the time to bring that up. Who is this? Rooster tilted his head curiously at Karin. A captive? She's with me, Naruto said simplistically. Don't worry, she's not a threat. Rooster glanced back at him. We're under orders from Hokage-sama to bring you home. He gestured to his men. Take her. Two ANBU operatives stepped forward. Naruto raised an arm in front of Karin. She's not the enemy. Understood, but we will have to restrain her, Rooster said as his subordinates approached. The hell you are! Karin burst out. Naruto pushed her behind him. She's not dangerous. I trust her. I don't. Rooster nodded at his men. I wouldn't, Naruto warned the ANBU in a voice cold enough to put a halt in their step. Like I said, she's with me, he told Rooster directly. She's family. What? The ANBU captain was audible surprised. She's a captain, if I may, another ANBU operative wearing a lantern fish on his mask spoke up. Rooster held his subordinate's gaze for a moment, and then gestured his men to stand down. Who are you? Naruto asked suspiciously as the ANBU approached. That's a hurtful question to ask, Naruto-kun, the ANBU said as he removed his mask and smiled. Naruto's eyes widened. You. Chapter 27, Homecoming. Hai no Kuni, Kusa no Kuni border. You. Naruto could hardly believe his eyes as the mask went off. What he was seeing simply wasn't possible. It couldn't possibly be true. He was supposed to be. It's been a long time, Naruto-kun. Dead? Tsuchi? You look like you've seen a ghost, Naruto-kun. Tsuchi chuckled. The man had changed a great deal. He had lost considerable weight and possessed a muscular physique. He was bold now. His face was angular and gaunt and framed by a well-trimmed beard. He looked so different that if it hadn't been for the sound of his voice, Naruto might not have recognized him. Naruto shook his head in disbelief. Is this some kind of joke? It's no joke, Tsuchi assured, a slight smile on his face. The former sleeper agent seemed to have shed his menacing demeanor entirely. He appeared to be no different than the man Naruto had known growing up. As the shock subsided, anger kicked in. Tsunade told me you were dead. There was that voice again, the glacial tone that surfaced emotions had to be forcefully restrained. And as far as the world is concerned, I still am, Tsuchi acknowledged with a nod. I understand you, the hell you do. Naruto knew exactly what Tsuchi was about to say, and he had no interest in hearing it. His bald hands itched to strike the man. Do you know how much you hurt I am? Tsuchi flinched at the mention of her name, and bowed his head. Thank you for looking after her. I've been keeping an eye on her every now and then. She seems to have moved on with her life. Why don't you do more than keep an eye on her and actually go see her? Naruto grabbed the man by the straps of his body armor. All this time I was carrying this guilt of your death. All this time I had to pick up the pieces of her life because you shattered her entire world. What the fuck were you doing? I killed 4 people, Naruto-kun, Tsuchi said quietly, though he made no attempt to free himself. 4 people. I wasn't myself, but I can't take that back, no matter what I do. Their blood is on my hands. Their families. Naruto released the older shinobi with a push. He didn't want to hear it. So now you're with ANBU. The demand for a good explanation harbored implications reserved for his enemies. Inoichi-sen helped me recover under the orders of Hokage-sama. Tsuchi began to explain, visibly apprehensive of his tone and demeanor. They were able to separate my consciousness from the man I once was. After my treatment, I realized that it didn't matter whether I called myself Tsuchi or Hamachi. The death of those men stuck to my conscience all the same. So you decided to put on a mask for the rest of your life and do what? Every single member of my team is deceased as far as any official record is concerned, Rooster decided to cut in. Service to our country and village is our sole purpose. I don't even get, Naruto rounded on the ANBU captain. Yeah, I know who you are, and I know you know exactly who I am. Rooster held his gaze for a moment, and then reached for his mask, unclasping it as he spoke. They told you. Kahaku Shuichi lowered his mask and revealed his striking pale visage, likely as a result from wearing his mask. He had retained the same rooster-like hairstyle he had as a youngster, albeit longer. His eyes were mysterious black, unnerving and unreadable as they ever were. Yeah, though it would have been nice to hear it from you. Naruto subconsciously clenched his fist. I would have never met you if it weren't for Gramps being in the hospital, would I? You were my father's friend. I was his best friend, Shuichi stated matter-of-factly. Minato was a good man and as a brother to me. I mourned his passing, and that of your mother. Then why did you never come to see me? It was neither the time nor the place, but old wounds rarely reopened at the most appropriate of times. Still, he remembered there were more important matters at hand, more important than his hurt feelings. The both of you are cowards, he said, and left it at that. We have orders to bring you back. Shuichi was quick to return to task and put his mask back on. This girl, he gestured to Karin, we'll have her to come with us. She stays with me. Naruto knew he raised the issue not because he cared a tremendous deal for Karin, but because he quite frankly couldn't stand any of the ANBU at the minute, and it felt good to put his foot down. You don't want to do that, he warned the approaching operatives with bindings in their hands as they looked to their captain. Very well, Rooster conceded easily. We are returning immediately. Try to keep up. You'll eat those words, Naruto said as he abruptly lifted Karin off her feet and slung her across his back. Hey. Take it easy, I'm not a sack of potatoes. Try to be a little more gentle. Then they scattered. Konoha, Hokage Tower. What is it? Tsunade half rose out of her chair as Shizen entered her office in a hurry. The Godame appeared disheveled and tired. Her desk was an absolute mess of stack of papers covering every inch. Every 15 minutes, or so more status reports came flooding her way due to the entire country kicking into wartime preparations. Whenever she looked outside her window, the village was teeming with shinobi on rooftops and on every corner receiving and sending messenger birds. Are they back yet? Much to her dismay, Shizen shook her head. Rooster sent a messenger ahead. They'll be here within the hour. There has been a new development. A new development? Tsunade sat back down and leaned back into her chair. Good or bad? Good, I think. You think? Tsunade knit her brows, nonplussed. Well then, let's hear it. Naruto is bringing us someone with him, Shizen informed the Hokage. A deserter from Kusagakure. Tsunade sat up straight. He is doing what? According to Rooster, she has agreed to cooperate in exchange for protection, Shizen elaborated quickly, mindful of her master's temper. She? The Godame repeated, to which her assistant nodded. Very well, informed Ibiki. I want him in a room with her the moment she gets here. Shizen hesitated to relay the rest of the message. According to Rooster, she will only speak with you and Naruto. I don't care what she wants. This girl will make no demands of me. Tsunade had to admire the boldness behind that demand even if she had no intention of accommodating the deserter. Have Ibiki report to my office when they get here. Yes, Tsunade-sama. Shizen withdrew with a bow, leaving the door opened as Izumo and Kotetsu walked in after her. The Godame narrowed her eyes at the pair of Chunin bearing more gifts. If I need to sign any of those, I suggest you leave them at the door and walk away. They didn't need be told twice and bowed out. Elsewhere, Sakura studied Rei intently to gauge her reaction, sat across from her in her living room. She had caught her on her way back home and delighted with the opportunity to be the first break the goods new to her. She had hoped for a more lively response, but as always, the girl maintained her dignity. Today, that's what I heard. Rei directed most of her gaiety inward but smiled to convey appreciation. Thank you for coming. Tell me, you missed him a lot, didn't you? The stoic girl rarely showed her emotions, but Sakura could tell Naruto was one of few causes for exceptions. They were an odd couple, there was no way around it, but they were good for another. Naruto was the lively one, spontaneous and fun to be around, something Sakura lamented she hadn't realized that until he left Team 7, and Rei was the calm, level-headed countervail that kept him grounded and reined him in when necessary. I'm really glad Naruto found you. Rei seemed puzzled by that. What do you mean? I wasn't a good friend to Naruto when we were on the same team. Sakura confessed what she presumed Rei already knew, though it felt good to get off her chest. For the most part anyway. I didn't treat him the way I should have, none of us did really, but I think I'm the worst one. He was loud and obnoxious and persistent, but he always came through for me when I needed him. If it is any consolation, Naruto has never spoken a bad word about you, or anyone else on your team for that matter, Rei told her, though that only made Sakura feel worse. In fact, he rather speaks highly of each of you. Though begrudgingly so when it comes to Sasuke-kun, Sakura finished laughing, to which Rei nodded, smiling. That does sound like Naruto. The same goes for Sasuke. He interrogated me earlier, trying to get as much information on Naruto as he could. I think he's a little jealous. I know what that's like, Rei admitted to her astonishment. I was worried when I heard he had gone to Kusa alone, but I wasn't scared. I just knew he'd make it out of there and keep his promise. His promise? Sakura raised an eyebrow. It's nothing. Rei actually looked embarrassed for a second. It's just a silly agreement between us. A distant look came over her as she raised her cup to her lips. Hai no Kuni, slow down. Karin yelped as Naruto stormed onwards, bending the wind beneath his legs as he practically flew through the forest. He didn't seem to hear the redhead on his back, her voice drowned out by screeching wind, but even if he did, he wasn't likely to comply. The Anbu kept up with little effort, though they trailed behind. Naruto knew he couldn't keep up his futon-enhanced speed for much longer, even if nature manipulation was considerably less taxing than the Shunshin. He kept his pace, however, eager to get back home as soon as possible. He would have to face the music, and it wasn't going to pretty if Tsunade was even half as pissed as he imagined her to be. But the sooner he took his lumps, the sooner he could get back to finding Jiraiya. They were nearly back in Konoha already, a few hours out, half a day at the most. Karin, he said as they crossed a significant distance. Oh, so you can hear me? What do you want? She snapped irritably. I need to learn more about Fuinjutsu. It had come abundantly clear to him in Kusugakure that proficiency in the art of sealing was going to be pertinent to his growth as a shinobi, and especially as a Jinchuriki. It wouldn't do if his opponents could meddle with his seal. So, can you teach me? He asked as they landed and took off a second later into another long leap. You grew up in the Uzumaki clan, right? Not all of us are sealing masters, you know? Karin replied a little louder than necessary. We have a natural affinity towards sealing, but that's not enough. It takes time and dedication. Dedication I didn't have, she added. What little I know won't help much, and even if I were so inclined to help you, that's not part of our deal. Naruto rolled his eyes. Of course there would be a cost. What do you want? A date? He nearly lost his balance and slipped. We're related, not with you, dipshit. She thwacked him on the head. Good for that one. With Sasuke, not this again. Naruto swore under his breath. I can introduce you, but I can't make him go out with you. Ask something else. I didn't think that would work. Karin sighed and hung her head in defeat. The swiftness behind her words made it clear she had no expectation of her initial request. Okay, you gotta make sure I stay with you when we get to Konoha. You make sure I get to live with you and not in some shitty detention facility. Deal? That might be a tough sell. Naruto sucked his teeth. That's going to take a whole lot of convincing, but since I'm getting my ass kicked anyway, I'll try my best. I'm not interested in you trying your best, Karin replied flatly. Get it done or forget it. Fine, bitch. What was that? I said fine. Several hours later, they arrived at Konoha under the cover of night. Naruto felt his heart melt at the sight of the illuminated village. He was exhausted but refused to let that stop him. Rooster insisted they pass through a hidden path as standard procedure. He didn't argue, he didn't have the strength for it. Karin was fast asleep on his back. He envied her. This is where we part, Naruto-kun, Tsuchi said by the entrance of the hidden path. I hope we can meet again. Naruto had yet to come to terms with the fact the man was still alive, let alone working as part of ANBU. They hadn't even spoken since they set off, but despite how displeased he was with the man, he didn't have much choice to accept it. I won't tell Iam about you, thank you, but I will eventually. It didn't sit right with him, no matter how well Tsuchi rationalized it, and it angered him. Tsuchi put him in position that would make him a hypocrite. Most importantly, he knew how much it would hurt Iam if she found out he kept this from her. She has a right to know, and I know I would have wanted to know if I were in her position. He knew that much for a fact. Tsuchi looked despondent but accepted his decision. I'll keep watching over her when I can. That's never going to be enough to make up for losing you. Naruto shifted Karin's weight in his arms as he carried her. I'll be seeing you again soon. Count on it. Whatever this is, we're not done. Rooster led the way through the underground labyrinth. It was an elaborate maze of tunnels and secret passages that connected to a number of key strategic points in the village and linked the various department buildings. The last time he had been in here, he thought he was sending Tsuchi to his death, and Tsunade had given him a lecture he was determined never to forget. I'm not asking you to be smarter than anyone else. You're not that type, you learn through pain rather than reason. You're just like Jiraiya in that sense. Then what are you asking? I'm asking you to not be an idiot. You've got all the talent and determination you need to become a great shinobi one day, Naruto. Don't waste any of it on stupidity. It's a promise. I wonder if I broke that promise by going to Kusa. In retrospect, it wasn't the smartest thing he had ever done. If he had to be honest, he knew he was probably making a mistake when he went, and as much as he regretted not being able to save Jiraiya, he didn't regret going, and he didn't regret fighting Sojan either. If it was a mistake, then it was one worth making, and one that would serve as a valuable lesson. For now he could only hope Tsunade would understand the sense of obligation he had felt when he went to Kusa. She knew Jiraiya better than anyone. But she's also the Hokage, he considered, and I'm supposed to be her successor someday. It's hypocritical of me, but I wouldn't have let her go. Damn it! A tapping sound echoed through the halls. Rooster raised a staying hand. Karin, wake up, he said quietly as he put her down. There was a certain ill intent in the air. Danzo-sama, Rooster greeted. The one-eyed shinobi came into view with half a dozen of root shinobi at his shadow. I thought I told you to bring him back in bindings. Hokage-sama told me to disregard that order. Rooster told the darkness of shinobi, though it was unlikely he needed the reminder. Is there something I can do for you, Danzo-sama? Relinquish custody of these two to me. By no indication was Danzo asking, and yet he had no authority to overrule the Godame. It was a rather bold move. Respectfully, sir, I cannot do that. Rooster kept his cool despite the obvious intent in the air. I must ask that you let us pass. Save yourself trouble, Shuichi, Danzo cautioned icily. I will not ask again. I will do what I must to respect the Hokage's wishes, Rooster replied as he reached for his sword. Don't you move, he whispered to the young shinobi at his back. Naruto drew the tanto given to him by the sandaime. The engraved kanji glimmered under the torchlight. I won't take a single step forward, but I'm not running from that one-eyed creep. Take them, Danzo ordered. The root operatives parted their cloaks and drew their weapons as they advanced wordlessly. Then, before the fighting could begin, thick wooden beams suddenly protruded from the walls and interlocked to create a chest-high wall between them. Stand down! A powerful voice commanded. Naruto recognized it immediately, and he felt a wave of unease and dread settle in his stomach. She sounds pissed. Tsunade came into view with a single ANBU operative in tow. Danzo, the Godame spiked her chakra reflexively. What do you think you are doing? Are you so eager to give me the justification I need to tear you down? Naruto felt a second chill run down his spine. He knew Tsunade could be scary, but he hadn't witnessed her unbridled hostility before, and she wasn't even directing it at him. He silently prayed it would never come to that. Tsunade glowered at the one-eyed shinobi. Your Hokage asked you a question, Hokage-sama. The one-eyed warmonger humbly bowed. I assure you I had every intention of delivering them to you myself. Tsunade bore down Danzo for a moment longer. I'm sure you did. The root operatives sheathed their swords and fell in line behind their leader. Well then, as you are here already, I will take my leave. Not yet, you won't, Tsunade called after them. Your men disobeyed a direct order. Additional ANBU operatives appeared from every corner. Cat, Hokage-sama. The ANBU commander appeared before the Godame in a kneeling position. See to it they are comfortable in their cells for the next 6 months. Tsunade allowed herself a smug smile as an irritated Danzo wordlessly had his men surrender. And make sure you keep them at separate holding facilities. As you wish, Hokage-sama. Cat nodded, gesturing orders to her subordinates. The ANBU reinforcements surrounded the root operatives and swiftly took them into custody. Danzo hid his ire under a mask of calm. Am I free to go, or do you wish to bully this old man some more? If I wanted to bully you, I'd take your cane, but I'm not that petty. Sunda called off her men with a simple hand gesture. He's free to go. Danzo promptly headed down the tunnels and disappeared from sight a moment later. Tsunade turned to round on her Jinchuriki only to find him hiding behind a terrified-looking girl his age. Hey. Tsunade-sama. It's been a long time. Has it been a year already? Time sure flies, huh? Naruto laughed nervously. I sure did. You miss you a lot. You know I have nothing but love and respect for you, right? I mean, I grew up without a mother, but I imagine our relationship is much like that of a mother and her. Save it, runt. Naruto gulped. This wasn't going to go well. Look, I know, I shouldn't have gone to Kusa. I guess I have issues with authority and bad impulse control. I guess it's because I grew up alone as a lonely orphan, so I never really had any framework for. I said save it. Tsunade stomped over and lifted him off the ground by his shirt, hefting him a solid foot of the ground. Don't think being cute and playing the sympathy card is going to save you from the world of pain you're about to become familiar with," Karin yelped, having tried to make herself scarce only to be blocked off by Cat. "Who is she?" Tsunade tried not to notice the fact how much he had grown. "Your new friend from Kusa? I guess she's my captive, but at the same time she's like a friend, but she's also a pain in the ass, so I'm not sure." Naruto squirmed under the Godame's look. "She's actually family? Huh?" Tsunade threw the blonde aside like a ragdoll and took a better look at Karin. "She does look like an Uzumaki and her chakra feels like it." Naruto banged his head against the wall and rolled on the ground holding his crown and hissed in pain, "Oops." Tsunade towered over Karin with a gauging look in her eyes. "What's your name, girl?" Karin," the redhead squeaked. "Naruto convinced me to come with him. He found me after I deserted Kusa. He promised me safety in exchange for information. Did he now?" Tsunade looked at the blonde in question over her shoulder. "I don't recall giving you the authority to broker deals on Konoha's behalf, Chunin. She knows a lot about Kusa's operations. I had to promise her something in return." Naruto tried to sound as reasonable and non-demanding as possible. "Right, I don't give a shit what she knows," Tsunade said sharply. "Last I checked you were supposed to be training with the Sarutobi clan on Mount Kongurin, not starting the 4th Shinobi World War. We both know I didn't do that." Naruto raised his voice despite his best efforts. "Gramps told me a war was coming anyway. I figured. You figured you could just forego the chain of command and ignore all our diplomatic efforts?" Tsunade cut him off angrily. "Is that what you thought, that you could just act on your own and attack a military stronghold with impunity? No, you have no idea what your actions have led to, do you?" Tsunade wasn't about to let up. "Kusa will respond. I had the entire country begin wartime preparations. We've closed our borders and issued a recall for our diplomats and shinobi. Do you have any idea what kind of repercussions that will have? I was under pressure to disavow you and declare you a rogue shinobi." Naruto took it hard. He knew there would be consequences to his actions before he left, and he knew those consequences wouldn't just affect him, but hearing it, having it shouted at him by the Hokage. It wasn't something he could have truly prepared for, and he knew in that moment he had no leg to stand on. It didn't matter what he thought, it didn't matter what his intentions were or what obligations he felt he had to follow. It dawned him as clear as glass. I was wrong. As Konoha's Jinchuriki, you're expected to be more than just a jail hour. You are a pillar of balance. You're expected to think of everyone before yourself. You attacking a village without any kind of consideration or authorization wasn't just selfish, it endangered the lives of everyone you know. What would we have done if you were captured, huh? We don't just lose Uzumaki Naruto, we lose an important military asset that severely weakens us politically and militarily." He lowered his head as Tsunade continued to chew him out. "Everyone might have known conflict was coming, but you had to go and throw oil on the fire before it even got going, didn't you? Do you not realize the consequences of war? Countless lives are affected, entire economies can crash, trade can come to an abrupt halt, panic spreads, and people scramble to get what they can before the going really gets tough. I have half a village that is terrified, and another half that are baying for blood. And it's not just us. Our allies have to make a stand one way or another when the time comes, and your little excursion has forced their hands. They might back us in this pinch, but they might not in the next one. And don't you think for a second killing Sojan would have immediately put an end to all our problems either?" He reflexively looked up at that last remark. "What, did you think killing one old man would end all of this? At best you'd buy us some time, and they'd be more careful next time, they'd wizen up and maybe even catch us by surprise. Of course, you didn't kill Sojan to begin with, did you? How dash, I am the Godame Hokage of Konoha. It is my business to know." Tsunade lifted him off the ground by his collar. "Do you remember what I asked of you the last time we were down here? Do you remember what you promised me?" Naruto nodded. "Do you think your actions protected that promise?" He shook his head. "Do you?" Tsunade shook him again. She wanted to hear it from his mouth. "No," he answered quietly. He felt smaller and more foolish than he had in years. It was like he was 6 years old again, and being chastised by Hiruzen for doing something reckless but far, far more severe. "No. I'm sorry." "You're damn right you're sorry," Tsunade growled, and then she embraced him. "You're a damn fool." The sudden display of affection confounded him. It caught him off guard, shocking him into silence. It felt like it's something that missing all his life but thoroughly natural, warm, and comfortable. He hadn't even though to return the gesture, nor did he have the chance to because it didn't last long, and was followed by a just as unexpected punch to the face that rocked him off his feet and sent him crashing into the wall. His head rung painfully as he groaned out, "I deserve that. And a whole lot more, but we don't have time for that," Tsunade said as she picked him up and dusted him off. "You made me worry," she said so quietly only he could hear. "Don't ever do that again." Naruto's eyes widened slightly. "I promise. I'll be keeping you to that promise as well. If you're a man, you'll keep it no matter what, right?" "I can't promise I won't scare you again," he said quietly, "but I won't ever break a promise again. I swear it on my life." "Good." Tsunade stepped back, looking at him for a moment longer to take in his changed appearance, noting how he had grown, before turning to Kat. "Put her somewhere safe. If she wants to help us stick it to Sojan, we can work something out, provided her information pans out." "Don't argue," Naruto told Karin before she could protest. "This isn't Kusa. You'll be safe wherever they put you. I'll come for you as soon as I can. Don't forget our deal," Karin reminded him as Kat escorted her away. "I mean it, Naruto," Tsunade raised an eyebrow. "Exactly what kind of deal did you come to? It's a long story, but it won't cost us anything," Naruto promised quickly. "Well, I might have to actually beg Sasuke to help me out. As long as she cooperates," Tsunade said as they walked down the hall. Naruto remembered his earlier conversation with Karin. "She also wants to live with me, but I'll understand if you..." "Sure, why not?" Tsunade agreed disappointingly easily. "After we've taken necessary precautions, of course." He wasn't so sure how to feel about that. "Why, yay, you don't sound particularly happy about that. She's kind of a pain in the ass." "Oh, really? It's different with me. I'm way cuter than she is." Tsunade burst out laughing for a second, and then punched him in the arm hard enough to make it instantly go numb. "Ouch. What the hell was that for? I'm still angry at you. You better not forget that chewing out any time soon, brat." "I won't," he said, rubbing the offended limb and trying his best to fight off his oncoming migraine. "Trust me, I won't. It's dumbass kids like you why I never wanted kids," Tsunade sneered, ruffling his hair roughly. "And don't think I'm done with you yet either. If you think those love taps hurt, just you wait. You know, for someone who doesn't want kids, you're awfully sweet on me. Are you really pushing your luck with me right now? If I don't find the levity in this, what else am I good for? Aside from dashing good looks, you're about to find out." Several hours later, the ceiling fan cycled steadily under the bright lights, slow and monotonous like a hypnotic device. Naruto could feel his eyelids growing heavier each passing second and groaned his frustrations aloud. He leant back in his chair and rubbed his eyes, willing himself awake. He sat in a square interrogation facility across from a trenchcoat-wearing intelligence officer. It had been hours and they were going in circles. "And after you escaped, did these alleged Uzumaki clan members pursue you?" "Like I've already told you 3 times, yes, but I didn't see them." "And what do you mean alleged? Are you call me liar? How did you know they were pursuing you?" "The girl I came back with, Karin, she's some kind of super sensor type. She sensed the prick coming." "But I already told you that." "And who is this prick?" "Like I said, the others called him Atsushi." Naruto felt what little remained of his patience slipping. He had retold the exact same story 6 times already, with hardly any changes, though of course they scrutinized every little detail he recounted. "Can I go? Just a few more questions." "I've already told you everything," Naruto ground out irritably. 6 times already? Are you seriously not clear on what happened, or are you just fucking with me? I understand this might be a trying experience, but please try to understand we have to be sure you are debriefed properly, the intelligence officer said calmly. "Now, after you escaped Kusagaku, you made your way to the mountainside borders, yes?" Naruto nodded. "Why? Why was that?" "No particular reason. My summon was injured, so we landed and decided to talk." "Ah, yes, the Falcon. Senzaru, correct?" "Ahu. You want to ask him questions?" "I'm sure he won't mind answering." No, thank you." "Please continue," Naruto sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose, and sighed. "We made our way through the mountains because it was convenient at the time. That's when we ran into more enemies. Some clan that lived in those mountains and occasionally did business with Sojan." "Ah, yes," the officer flipped through his notes. "I believe you said you killed only those that attacked and left survivors where they were." "Why? They weren't a threat, and I wasn't in the mood to kill them, but they could have jeopardized your exfiltration." "No," he looked the intelligence officer in the eye, "they couldn't. If they didn't die from their injuries, they wouldn't be in any state to talk anyway." "And you're positive of this?" "Hey, let me ask you something." He squinted his eyes looking for some form of ID. "What's your name?" "Hiromi." "Hiromi, I've told you what happened. I've told you exactly what happened 3 times now. I haven't slept in what feels, and probably is, days. I'm hungry, I'm cranky, and the last thing I need right now is to sit in this tiny room, on this uncomfortable chair, under that fucking ceiling fan that nobody has bothered to fucking clean in years, telling the same story of how much I failed and fucked up over and over again. Now, if there is something you think you might have missed, I'll be more than happy oblige. Naruto rose out of his seat, but that will be at another time. Uzumaki-san, please, we still have more. Naruto upped and left the room before Hiromi could finish. He might have been pushing his luck, but he knew damn well the briefing could have waited, and the only reason it didn't was because Tsunade wasn't done screwing with him yet. He made it about 20 paces when he realized he had no idea where the exit was. Ah, damn it, he muttered miserably. Now I'm going to have to ask the guy directions. Naruto? A familiar voice called out. Naruto turned to find Ino looking at him agape. He couldn't blame her given the fact he looked like hell and was still bloody from his fight in Kusa. Hey, I almost didn't recognize you, the Yamanaka said as she caught up. You look terrible, you look better. Naruto always thought Ino was pretty in a shallow way, but she had become a lot more ladylike since he had last seen her, though all it did was make him long to see Rei all the more. I guess I should have figured you'd end up working here. It helps to be the department head's daughter, Ino quipped with a toothy grin. Though I obviously made it here on my own merits. Obviously, he agreed overtly patronizingly. It wasn't that he doubted her, more so that he couldn't bring himself to care a great deal at the time. Care to show me the way out before that Hiromi guy comes looking for me? Hiromi? What's the doing debriefing you? He just started here last week. Naruto froze for a moment, screaming internally. He had me in there for 3 hours, should have walked out sooner then. Ino laughed at his expense. The exit is this way. Ino swiftly led the way, making only a few quick stops to talk to her colleagues, who all stared at him like he was some kind of ghost. I don't always work here, by the way, she said as they walked. I still work at the flower shop every now and then, and sometimes I go on missions with the Suma-sensei. Ahu. A non-committal grunt was about the best Naruto could offer in his disgruntled state. Hey Ino. Yeah? How much trouble would someone be in if they, say, I don't know, beat up a rookie intelligence officer sometime in the near future? Asking for friend, obviously. Obviously. Ino giggled, unaware he wasn't entirely joking. Hokage Tower, and you are confident the situation will be resolved peacefully? Daimyo-sama, I'm confident Kusa doesn't want to pick a fight right away, Tsunade said as she stood before a number of monitors in her office. Sojan will be licking his wounds for a while. His allies won't move a muscle until he's back on his feet, and even then they might not follow him. Frankly, he has been embarrassed so much they all look weak by association. What are your plans for the rogue Jinchuriki? The minister of the left demanded. Surely he must be punished. He committed treason, the stern-faced minister of the right agreed with his counterpart. He must pay the price. Hokage Dano? The daimyo looked at Tsunade expectantly. What do you have to say about this? Tsunade tightened her fists behind her back. Daimyo-sama, given the fact we have publicly claimed responsibility and are backing the actions of the shinobi in question, we cannot appear to send conflicting messages by meting out severe punishment. That makes sense, the Lord of Fire said from behind his ornate fan. I suppose we can't very well execute him. You'd have worse problems than Sojan if you tried, the Godame mused behind her smile. No, the daimyo mused, we'll have to do the opposite of that. You mean to reward him? The minister of the right said ludicrously. My lord, that would be consistent with our message, Tsunade cut in, nodding in agreement. A most wise idea. It would be best if the feudal lord were made to believe it was his. Of course you would say that, the plump minister of the left said accusingly. We are well aware of your questionable relationship with the shinobi in question, Godame. Perhaps you would like to speak in plain language, Saijin Dano, Tsunade invited coolly, curious to know what they had heard. You have made it abundantly clear you have no intention of harming the Jinchuriki. Rumors have it you treat him as your own son, the Saijin scoffed. Understandable given your age and marital status. Tread carefully, Saijin Dano. Excuse me? You dare dash. Might I remind you that I serve at the pleasure of our esteemed daimyo? Tsunade cut him off icily. My job description does not include taking insults from the likes of you, and yours does not make you immune to the consequences. Are you threatening me? No, of course not, Tsunade laughed and smiled pleasantly. I am merely reminding you of facts you seem to have forgotten. The daimyo made a poor attempt at hiding his amusement, sniggering behind his fan. Oh, how I do enjoy your fierce spirit, Hokage Dano. Allow me to apologize on behalf of my minister. He meant no offense. My lord! You do not have to. Enough. The minister fell silent, and lowered his head to beg his pardon. My dear, we are currently in dire straits, but you have done well to maneuver through this difficult political climate. Capitalizing on Uzumaki Naruto's reckless actions was risky, but it required the kind of courage we need the most in these difficult times. You have my compliments and my trust. Thank you, Daimyo-sama. Tsunade bowed her head in respect. At least the Fire Lord knew his Jinchuriki by name. I trust you will privately mete out punishment accordingly with appropriate use of your considerable discretion, the daimyo continued. However, in the public eye, we must appear as though we are rewarding one of our brave shinobi for his fearless patriotism and valor. What do you suggest, my lord? Tsunade inquired, genuinely curious. A promotion should do, the Fire Lord decided. Uzumaki Naruto is a chunin now, yes? That simply will not do for one our nation's bravest sons. Let it be known that I thank Uzumaki Naruto for his services and declare him a hero of Hai no Kuni. The Godame felt ambivalent towards the notion of a promotion but was not about to let the daimyo know that. I will see your will done with haste, my lord. Good. And Hokage-dano, the royal's tone changed noticeably more solemn. I understand that you might feel obligated towards the boy because of his parents and his pupillage to our mutual friends, but I expect you to treat him no differently than the thousands of other shinobi under your command. Tsunade swallowed her pride and hero objection with it. This meeting had gone far better than she could have hoped. Of course, well then. I will call upon you once more in due time. My son Ryujin and his betrothed have finally set a date. We will have discussed security concerns regarding their ceremony. I look forward to it, and thank you, Daimyo-sama. Tsunade bowed her head until the daimyo's screen went blank. The minister of the right disconnected without another word. The minister of the left lingered for a moment longer, glowering. This isn't over, you old hag. Isn't that what you said the last time? Tsunade replied coldly. You keep pushing me, fat man. Keep pushing until you wind up with a slit throat and an unmarked grave. Chi! More threats. I don't make threats, Tsunade said coldly. Remember that, minister. The screen went blank a second later. The Godame heaved a heavy sigh. Politics could be so tiring, and after the past week she could use a stiff drink and a nice long nap. Make that 2 drinks. Naruto lowered his hand as his eyes adjusted to the light outside. Thanks, he looked to Ino as they walked side by side for a little longer. What's everyone up to lately? A lot has changed since you left. Why don't we all catch up tonight? Ino suggested. I can't tonight. He shook his head as they turned left when his body ached to turn right. I'm tired as hell and I want to sleep for like a week. Off to go see Ray-san first? He gave her a question look. I don't have to read your mind for that. You better not try to either. I didn't think you were the romantic type, Naruto, going to see your girl as soon as you can. What? I've always been the romantic type, you just couldn't see it. It's not like you were hounding me for dates like Sakura. It's not like you would have gone out with me if I asked. There was something about the way she looked at him that prompted him to check. Right, back then? No way, Ino shook her head. Now? I don't know. You've changed for the better. Well, aren't you shallow? I am not shallow. Ahu, I'm sure you aren't, but unfortunately for you, I'm spoken for. Oh, please, groveling won't do you any good, madam. He ducked as she playfully swatted at him. If you can make this get-together of yours happen tomorrow, I'll be there. It'll be great to see everyone again. Tomorrow night might not work, but we could probably meet for lunch, Ino compromised after a moment's thought. You might not want to do that, she said when he looked to the rooftops. The whole village is on edge. If the military police catches you, they won't go easy on you. Huh! Was his intelligent reply. Military police? I thought they were disbanded a long time ago. He had still been a kid when they were around, and if memory served him correctly, the Uchiha weren't very popular because of it. Hokage-sama reinstated the department not long after you left actually, Ino informed as they came to a stop by intersection. The Hyuga clan is pretty much running it now, but they're not alone. They've got some Akimichi, Inazuka, and bunch of other clans working with them. Even a handful of us, which I thought was surprising since we are pretty much always needed in intelligence or interrogation, but Dad said it was important to make a gesture. I'll be careful then, Naruto, as they headed to opposing turns. I'll see you tomorrow. Sure! She shouted. And welcome home. Naruto waved and went about his way. He had intended to swing by Ray first, but had only just realized it was still early in the morning. I guess I should go home first and get cleaned up. Naruto bounded up the last steps, reaching for his keys as he reached his door, ears perking as he turned and pushed inside. The first thing he noticed was the fact that not only was his apartment spotless, it certainly smelled nicer than he remembered. He took off his sandals and sat him on the new shoe rack before slowly sidestepping the carpet for want of not dirtying it. As he crossed into the living room, he spotted a few new decorations. Flower-filled vase, cheap paintings and trinkets I.M. probably thought were cute when she bought them. She's probably still sleeping. He took care not be too loud as he peered into his old room. I.M. snored softly in her pillow. Naruto smiled. She was a sight for sore eyes, and he would have woken her if not for the fact she seemed exhausted even while sleeping, judging by the bags under her eyes. She's probably been working hard. Closing the door, he went to his own room. I.M. had kept it as clean as the rest of the apartment. She had organized his scrolls and books, arranged his weapons and equipment in a neat corner on his desk. I.M. had even gone through the effort of getting a mannequin for his flak jacket. Naruto unhooked his utility belt and placed it on his desk, yawning as he finished undressing and grabbed what he needed to take a shower. He couldn't remember the last time he had one. Karin had been relentless in her complaining about it. The pressure was still off and the water sometimes abruptly turned cold, and yet it was the best damn shower he had in a while. Every bone in his body begged for the merciful embrace of sleep when he finished, and he gladly complied. He fell asleep within seconds of resting his head on his pillow. Be wise, EZT. Be wise, EZT. Pain waited patiently as the last of his inner circle joined, their apparitions lighting up in a circle. Be wise, EZT. Welcome, the Akatsuki leader said once they were all accounted for. It has been some time since our last meeting. I hope you are all in good health and fit to work. On. You can count on Sasori no Dana and I. Deidara sounded excited. I've been looking forward to this meeting. Are we finally moving on with the plan? Indeed, Pain affirmed with observant eyes as he gauged their reactions. The Akatsuki alliance is still within its infancy. However, Kakuzu has assured me Kusa will recover shortly and will continue to rally allies to our cause. In the meantime, we will begin hunting down the Biju, Kakuzu continued smoothly. For our ambitions to come to fruition, a fourth shinobi world war must commence. However, the minor villages will be difficult to sway with 8 of the 9 Biju still in the Great Five's possession. About time. I was getting bored hunting down bounties, Haiden said boisterously. I must have racked up at least 300 million ryo. Ha! Sasori no Dana and I have earned nearly twice that. Well, you've got a partner that actually gives a shit. Mine is busy pretending to be our leader to outsiders. Sounds like you're making excuses, Sasori remarked. How unbecoming of you, Haiden. What was that, you prick? Do you want me to come over there to peel you out of your doll? Nobody insults Sasori no Dana. Deidara ayed heatedly. You watch yourself, Haiden. You watch your speech impediment, you queen. They sure are lively today, aren't they, Itachi-san? Kisame chuckled. Itachi merely nodded. Enough, Pain commanded, and at once they fell silent. I understand it has been some time since our last meeting, but I will not tolerate unprofessional squabbling. Kakuzu, continue. All 2-man teams will be reassigned to their original targets. The immortal picked up where he had left off. Sasori and Deidara, you will first capture the Ichibi Jinchuriki. I don't have to remind you how dangerous the young Kazekage has become. His power of magnetism makes him a dangerous opponent. Since you have the most experience facing that particular ability, Sasori, you suited best to deal with him. 1. Understood, Sasori acknowledged. May I still have his corpse once we are done extracting the Ichibi? Of course, Pain permitted. Haiden and I will hunt down the Nibi Jinchuriki. The Akatsuki frontman looked to his partner. The Nibi's power is that of Shikuten, so be careful, Haiden. Not even you can survive being scorched to ashes. 2. Yeah, I got it. You said the exact same thing last time. Itachi and Kisame will hunt down the Yambi. Be careful with that one especially, Kakuzu added after a moment's consideration. I crossed paths with its Jinchuriki a long time ago, before my time with Akatsuki. The Yambi's Jinchuriki might be the most dangerous of them all due to his experience. He uses Yotan ninjutsu, right? Kisame parted his shark-like teeth in an excited grin. I look forward to meeting him. Don't underestimate old man Rashi, Deidara cautioned the shark man. He's no joke, His lava jutsu are no joke, We will be careful, Itachi acknowledged with a mindful glance to his partner. Won't we? Kisame grinned, shark-like teeth half parting. Sure, then that does it for your targets for now, Kakuzu concluded. No target for us? Both Zetsu spoke in unison. You hurt our feelings. Zetsu, you are not suited for combat, the immortal treasurer said. We need to get back the Kuring Orochimaru took with him before we recruit a partner for you. Speaking of Orochimaru, Pain turned to the puppeteer in his organization. Do you have an update for us, Sasori? I was waiting for Kakuzu to finish handing out assignment, Sasori said. My contacts in his camp report Orochimaru has been playing it safe as of late. He never stays at the same place for longer than a week, 2 at the most, and only meets with his top shinobi in private, no one else. I have been told there have been some minor clashes between Otonin and Kusa, but nothing worth noting yet. It's likely Orochimaru and Sojan are merely butting heads for now. What are you doing to draw that elusive serpent out in the open? As per Kakuzu's instructions, I have ordered one of my spies closely situated to Orochimaru to lead him to Jiraiya's location. If all goes well, Orochimaru will reach out to the Godame Hokage for a meeting. Given their history and mutual interest to oppose us. Sasori trailed off for a moment, and shortly resumed. Once the time comes, my contact will give us the pertinent information we need and assist in retrieving the ring and disposing of the Orochimaru. Good, Pain said slowly. It won't matter if the Godame frees Jiraiya so long as she commits to an open show of force that will pressure Kusa into committing to our alliance. Indeed, Kakuzu affirmed in his baritone voice. The other villages will fall in line once one of the Great Five attacks a minor village. They will come to rely upon us for protection. In the meantime, I want the Great Five spread as thin as possible, Pain commanded the treasurer. Resume all activities at full capacity. I want blockades wherever we can draw them. I want our mercenary forces to take every mission that puts them at odds with the Great Five. We'll work for next to nothing if we have to, so long as we bleed them enough to weaken them. Just make it happen. How many men do we have now? Sasori inquired. We have close to 5,000 men fighting under our banner, both knowingly and otherwise, Kakuzu chuckled forebodingly. We are involved on some level in and profit from nearly every operation of note from Kaminari no Kuni to Numa no Kuni. Rest assured, we will make the Great Five spread so thin they will hardly be able to hold their borders if they're lucky. When the time comes, with our economic assets as great as they are, we will wield enough influence to crash entire markets if we play our cards right. We'll make Gato Industries going under feel like a breeze by comparison to the typhoon of chaos we will conjure up. Make it so, Pain commanded in a booming voice. From here on out, Akatsuki will be undeniable. Konoha, you're home. Naruto startled awake, a split second before he felt something hit him. What the hell? That hurt. The next thing he knew, he felt the air being squeezed out of his lungs as Ayam embraced him in his bed. You're home, she squealed in his ears. Why didn't you say anything when you got in? He needed a moment to rub the sleep out of his eyes. Hey sis, what time did you come in? Ayam asked as he got off him. She hadn't even bothered to change into something more appropriate, and simply wore an oversized shirt. In the morning, Naruto yawned a response. I arrived around midnight, but they kept me for a few couple hours for debriefing. By the time I got home, he yawned again, stretching arms over his head. You were still sleeping, so I went to bed. I figured I'd be the one to surprise you in the morning. Well, you still did. Ayam got off his bed. Come on, you must be hungry. I'll make you breakfast. You might want to get dressed first, he replied dryly as he threw off the covers and reached for a shirt. Look who put on some muscles. Ayam pinched his arm playfully. Careful now, Naruto, I might snatch you away from Rei. Haha, very funny. He pulled the shirt over his head. Speaking of Rei, do you speak often? She drops by every now and then when I'm at work, Ayam informed. I think she was just hoping I heard something, but of course I didn't. I did tell you I was going to be really busy, Naruto reminded her as he got out of bed. If I wasn't training, I was sleeping. It was pretty much just like that all year. He chose to leave out the fact that he probably had time to write when he was bedridden for a month but decided not to. You didn't have to worry about me. I wasn't worried about you being away. I was worried about you going to Kusa on your own. Ayama paused for a moment. Things have been tense in the village, Naruto, so I've heard. He could still hear Tsunade chew him out in his inner ear. Tsunade Bakun told me they can't even punish me because of political reasons, but she isn't going to let me off easy. I'm pretty much her bitch until further notice. Ayam laughed at his misfortune. Serves you right for scaring us. Will you go put some pants on already? He rolled his eyes at her. Oh, please, I had to put up with you walking half naked into my room every morning. Yeah, well, shut up. He threw his pillow at her, prompting Ayam to scamper off to find some clothes. Naruto reconsidered telling her about Tsuchi then and there for a moment, but decided against it almost immediately. Another time, he decided as he got up and walked to the kitchen. She was in a good mood and he didn't want to spoil it. That turned out to be a wise decision as Ayam cooked an elaborate breakfast, going all out to include his favorite foods. He ate his fill and then some as they talked. He didn't have much to eat in his time in Kusa. In fact, the last meal he was a few spoonsful of cold red bean paste. He wondered if Isao the intelligence officer and his little boy were okay. Sojan must have gotten to them by now, surely, and if so would he spare them? He didn't think the man to be merciful, but perhaps towards his own people. Thankfully Ayam put his mind off those grim questions with queries of her own. She asked him all about his training on Mount Konguren, what it was like living with the apes, the things he had learned and done while he was there, and what it was like being the Sandame's apprentice. Naruto answered all of her questions, and predictably, every answer beckoned another question as she was understandably curious to find out more. He was happy to indulge her curiosity, however. He had missed her immensely, and it beat torturing himself with guilt. So you've been running Ichiraku's on your own? I hired some help. Business has been surprisingly good, actually. Your friends come by all the time and tip generously. Even Niji-san, even though he hardly ever finishes a bowl. That's good, he said, pleasantly surprised. Yeah, I've saved a decent amount. Ayam nodded, smiling brightly. I've actually been saving up to go on a trip. Naruto stayed his hand or a moment in between taking bites from his buttered toast. A trip? Yeah, I've always wanted to travel, Ayam said, nodding. I'd like to see the world before I'm old and gray. I want to go to see the world, visit interesting places, meet new people, try new foods, an adventure, you know? Naruto considered his words carefully. It really wasn't his place to tell her what to do, and he already felt guilty for keeping information about her father from her, but he knew he had to say something. That sounds great, Ayam, it really does, but I don't think now is a good time to do that. Not for a while anyway, she replied, lowering her cup of tea. What do you mean? I don't want you to panic, so please don't, he emphasized his words when she sat upright. The current situation, climate, whatever they want to call it, isn't ideal for travel. I don't understand much of the politics, but I can tell you things aren't looking pretty. If war breaks, and I'm not saying it will soon, but if it does, I want you here, where I know you'll be safe. Okay, Ayam nodded understandingly. But you don't know if a war will happen, right? I mean, you can't be sure? She looked scared. He took her hands in his in an attempt to comfort her. I went to Kusa to save Jiraiya and end the war before it could begin, and I failed. He heaved a heavy sigh. His disappointment made the food taste like ash in his mouth. I wasn't able to kill Sojan, I only managed to piss him off. We can hope his allies are too intimidated to stand by him. But if he isn't, I doubt they will be for long, so I might have just ended up making things a lot worse. Hokage-sama must have been furious. Ayam squeezed his hands. But you did your best, right? Yeah, but it was enough. Something will have to give, and war is coming, sooner or later. He tried not to sound as bitter as he felt saying it. I support your dreams, sis, so if you really want to go, I'll deal with it, but I hope you'll stay at least a little while longer until we're sure of what's coming and when. He let her go and stood up. I'm not in a rush to leave, Ayam assured a moment later. I'll wait until things quiet down, she promised as she too got up, grabbed their plates. Don't worry about the dishes, you should go see your friends. Thanks, sis. Naruto gave her a peck on the cheek and went into his room to change into simple black pants and a blue shirt. And go get your hair cut, Ayam shouted after him as he closed the door. Naruto was painfully aware of the turning heads and looks as he walked through the village, so much so it made him a little paranoid and self-conscious. The stairs were different from they used to be, though, and he couldn't blame the villagers from looking at him as though they had seen a ghost. Some even smiled encouragingly when he looked at him, and others averted their eyes as though they feared him. A few simply acknowledged his presence with a simple nod or look, and some, predictably, regarded him with the same distaste they always had, perhaps a little more. A pair of military police officers walked past him. It was going to take getting used to seeing Hyuga clan members patrol the village. I bet Karin is losing her mind right now. He found some satisfaction in the thought she was probably still going through the processes of questioning. Serves her right. Hey, kid! One of the villagers called for his attention in passing. Naruto halted and looked to his right apprehensively. Yeah, I heard you kicked ass in Kusagakure. The older man nodded his approval. Well done! The villager went about his business before he could think of a response. It honestly left Naruto a little dumbfounded. Well, that's new. Look, it's that Naruto guy. Where? That's not him. It is, look. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he watched a bunch of kids looking and pointing in his direction. They were playing ninja from the looks of it. My dad says we should stay away from him. He couldn't help but frown at that, though he was used to by now. My mother said he's a hero. Yeah, my parents said he's a good guy. He might even be Hokage someday. No way. Naruto couldn't help but grin stupidly as he walked past them. I guess this is a part of growing up. He was accustomed to the adoration Konoha, Udon, and Moigi lavished on him, but this was new. He didn't even know these kids and they seemed to think highly of him, for the most part anyway. He couldn't help feel he had made at least some progress. The rest of the way to Rei's was much the same. The village seemed to have become more divisive as far he was concerned. Some thought better of him, others had only begun to acknowledge him, and there were still those that regarded him with contempt. It wasn't all good, but it wasn't all bad either. It was just different, and he had actually missed the village so much that he didn't even mind the disapproving looks. Naruto arrived at his destination a few minutes later and walked up to her door. A grown-up would have knocked on the door, taken a polite step back and waited to be greeted. True to his reputation though, the prankster in him found that too mundane, and he wanted to surprise Rei, who he suspected would have heard about his return by now. Best to keep it simple, he decided as he knocked. He walked around the house and looked to the balcony. If he recalled correctly, Rei's room was on the right. With a mischievous grin on his face he scaled the wall and vaulted over the railing, standing by her door, just in time to see a familiar figure and shoulder-length purple hair leave. Rei turned at the sound of his voice, a look of surprise in her eyes, one that Naruto shared upon noticing the infant in her arms. Naruto? A baby? He barely registered the thought when he saw the elation in her eyes and a moment later felt her lips on his. Naruto looked at her curiously as when she backed away. Rei-chan, you got some explaining to do. Rei laughed, and kissed him again.